Hi, besties. Wait, is the BGM on? Why is it so quiet? There we go. Hi, besties. Let me pull myself down, too. Oh my god, everything's all messy. Oh my god, wait. Oh my god, wait. What the fuck? There we go. Hi, besties. Hi. Hello, everyone. Gave her Ame stream. She was wasted and drinking with one shot. What? Hey, Nova reacts to Nova stream. Yeah. So, Lori, for those who don't know, what today's stream is, for some reason you cannot read. Today we're going over Mike licking lizard. Fuck off! Abuelita! Oh my god! Stop! We're gonna finish Albaz lore as soon as Golden Nova finishes all the Albaz videos. Yes, don't worry. Albaz lore that is in the works. Well, more like he's working on it, and I'm just waiting for him to finish it. I'm from Golden Nova's channel. Enjoy the lore. Thank you. Megane Nova? What's wrong with me, What's wrong with me being a Megane? Huh? Do you know what happens in Albaz lore? Of course I do. Have to say that Albaz lore is gonna be a trip. Dude, from what I've seen of like the most recent cards, oh, it's gonna be a heart wrencher! Oh my god! It's gonna hurt. Oh my god. There's gonna be so much Brazilian. We need Albaz anime, we do. Dude, Ecclesia better be okay. My girl better be okay. I mean, she looks like it in the field spell. They all seem very happy in the field spell, so like, I think we're fine. My lurk today? No worries. How are you doing? I'm good. I've just been busy today. Just doing a bunch of shit. But I'm done, and I'm here to hang out with the homies. And also, I'm gonna be real. I know literally nothing about Duel Terminal. I thought Duel Terminal was gonna be like Albaz lore, where it's a set of cards, but people were talking about Duel Terminal machines? Like, are they physical things? Like, I thought Duel Terminal was just like a set of cards. Like how Branded is like an archetype of cards. Is Duel Terminal, people can imagine machines. It's a machine, it's a thing? Okay. Never mind, I feel like everything I thought I knew about Duel Terminal is wrong. Everything I thought I knew was wrong. Oh my god. What? It's a bit arcade style machine. What? Yes, Duel Terminal machines were a thing. What the fuck? They were an arcade. What? Oh my god. They were arcade machines. They did speed duels. What the fuck? So the thing game is called Duel Terminal. Also took machines you can also get cards from. Oh my god, what the fuck? Why did we get those here? That sounds so cool! That sounds so cool, what the fuck? You actually cards in Duel Terminal machines playing against computer. What the fuck? That's so cool! That's so cool! That's so cool. But yeah, I'm very curious to see whatever the fuck this is. Arcades die in America. So true, bestie. So true, bestie. So true, bestie. But I'm very excited, and I do want to say thank you again to Mr. Golden Nova for letting me just watch your content on stream. I'm still surprised he lets me do this, but shout out to the king. I love Mr. Golden Nova. He is so nice. If you're, let me go grab his channel and let me link it for you guys. and then pin comment there. So if you like these lore videos and you want to watch more of them, and you also don't want to wait for me to watch them, you can go watch them by yourself. You can go watch them by yourself. They're all on his channel. He does amazing work. So if you want to see more lore content for Yu-Gi-Oh, definitely check out Mr. Golden Nova. No, we're gonna voice a Duel Logs top 10. If he asks me to do it, sure. Sure, I'll voice a top 10 video for Duel Logs if he asks me to. I'm not gonna be like, Duel Logs, let me do. Hold on. I won't be like, Duel Logs, do it, Duel Logs. I'm gonna voice a top 10 video. Give me script, do it. No. I wouldn't do that to the man. And if hi bestie, but if he asked me to, sure. It was so good. Where's the platinum supernova on nose? So true, bestie. Overlaid glasses on her eyes. What's wrong with me having glasses? They might have a dual terminal arcade for dedicated looking and traveling. Oh, do they still exist? Do they still exist? I didn't know if they did or. I thought they were all just like dead. Top 10 Yu-Gi cards I've never read. Shut up. One day I should just like make a Duel Logs top 10 video. They're not hard to copy. They're pretty simple videos. So what if I just made my own Duel Logs top 10 video? And I wrote the script to be like, Duel Logs, can you like voice this for me? What? That would be so funny. Oh my god, I should ask him about that. Top 10 of evil white sexy Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So true, bestie. Top 10 Duel Logs top 10s. Oh my god! I should do that! Oh my god, someone remind me later to tell Duel Logs to let me do that. That'd be so funny. Top 10 Universe card moments in history. Oh my god, it'd be so funny. Watch him hit you with a copyright strike even though he's in the video! So you're a Dragon Nova, right? My friend calls you a clown? What the fuck? What the fuck? What do you mean I'm a clown? What the fuck? That's fucked up and evil. Oh my god. I'm just a guy. I'm just a little man. I'm just a little man. I'm being attacked? Bitch, what the fuck? What lore do we have today? All dual terminal stuff. You're used to be goofy? What the fuck? Oh my god. Why are you all being mean to me? She just likes clowns? Listen, it's only Oliver, and I wouldn't say he's a clown. He's just a jester, and that's different. And even then, it's just like a title. He doesn't, like, he's just a little evil man. Leave him alone. Top 10 clowns? Okay, if we do top 10 clowns, number 1 has to be Oliver. She does like Oliver the Classy! Stop! Oliver's not a clown, he's the whole circus! Oh my god. Hello, hi bestie. Top 10 Classies. No, oh my god. This is so embarrassing! Do you realize that thespian is a combination of words despair, death, and thespian? What? That's a thing? Oh my god. Which side of dual terminal lore we're gonna try to go through all of it. Whatever Golden Nova has videos for, we're watching them. Again, I don't know how like deep this lore goes. I know nothing. So we'll just see where this takes us, you know? Well, all of it? I don't know. We're just gonna see where this takes us. I don't know. I know nothing.
Welcome to membership, bestie.
Welcome to membership, bestie. There's 6 separate story arcs. If you did all of them, it'd be like a day of streaming. Okay, again, I don't know what is available or how much exists. So we're just gonna watch what Mr. Golden Nova has. Again, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I don't know anything, so we're gonna learn together. He uncovered all of it from 2007 to 2016. Is it that long? Okay. Anyway, if I need to arc 5, why is it so long? Why is it so long? Okay, wait. But anyway, let's just jump right into it, you know? Let's just jump right into it. Oh yeah. As you can see, we have a new overlay. So thank you again to Nagai Lab. Oh, also I'm like, there we go. Thank you to Nagai Lab for making my new overlay. Isn't it cute? You like it? I feel like it's a lot cleaner. I like it a lot. Yeah. You might know them if you like go on Twitter and see VTubers. You might recognize Nagai Lab because they do a lot of stuff for like Niji Sanji and Whole Life. So I'm very happy that they agreed to work with me. She builds the overlay network star. It's so blue. It is so blue. Anyway, let's just jump right into it. Have you thought about making an image with you with the caption, "Have a good Nini"? I should make that.
In a world both very far and very near to us all, a
Okay,
tale of
let me
grand
know
import
if
is
this
unfolding.
sounds okay.
A tale where adventure lies just over the horizon, where good and evil do battle to determine the fate of the world, and where all is not what it may appear to be. Hello everyone, Golden Nova here.
Hi.
And today, it's time to continue the chronicles of a tale that is still being told about never-changing land. Sit
Is that
back,
better?
relax, and listen as I tell you all about the living history of the Duel Terminal.
Let me add in like other. Oh, okay.
Part
Okay, now-
3, a decisive blow.
Oh, this is part 3. We're like so off. Hold on. This is the wrong part. Part 1.
Before we begin, I have a
Here we go. Part one. Much better. There we go. This is the correct part. Now we will watch in order. I'm sorry, I clicked the
curious
wrong one.
question. When a story is created, where does it exist? Perhaps in the mind of the creator? Maybe. Though if the story is recorded and the creator disappears, the story still exists, so it can't be there. Perhaps it exists in the record?
Is that better?
Maybe. Though if the record is read and the record then disappears, the story still exists in the mind of those who observed it,
Don't see the
so it
purpose
can't
lore?
be there.
What?
Perhaps it resides in the audience. Maybe, though the audience's perception of that story will be changed and molded by the experience of each individual member, so can it really be said to reside there? Or is it a beautiful simulacrum with value all its own? Whatever the answer may be for other stories, I know where one such tale resides, and I think it's time we told it once again. A tale where adventure lies just beyond the horizon, where good and evil do battle to determine the fate of the world, and where all is not what it may appear to be. Hello everyone, Golden Nova here, and today it's time to begin the chronicles of a tale that is still being told about an ever-changing land. Sit back, relax, and listen as I tell you all about the living history of the Duel Terminal.
Whoa. Hey, yo, is that a super chat?
Can't be live. Nova is a part skipper SMH.
I didn't mean to, leave me alone! I didn't mean to, I'm sorry.
Part 1. Invasion from Above.
Oh.
The world of Terminus is a land brimming with life
Oh
of
my
all
God, is
shapes
that
and
where they
sizes.
come from?
You're as likely to find a dinosaur that carries within its body an undying flame as you are to find gigantic lions with flowery manes.
Huh?
Of these myriad life forms, 4 tribes have become the most prominent, and they have each made it their sworn mission to defeat the other 3. Hailing from the ignium sulfur fields are the Flamvel. While they mostly consist of pyrotypes, they also count some dragons amongst their ranks, as well as a beast and a fiend. So it appears that,
Okay,
while there is a certain
okay,
baseline,
okay.
the tribe won't turn away any who hold the primordial flame close to their hearts.
That's nice.
At the treacherous
Accepting of
Everblade
all.
mountain range, we find the X-Sabers. Previously a brash mercenary corps led by Souza, their disappearance has made Gotham's their new leader, an honorable warrior that has reformed the organization into a cadre of elite sword fighters. A massive change of pace, considering Souza had no qualm sacrificing their underlings to achieve their goals. Their ranks include a beast, warriors, beast warriors, and even a reptile. If you could wield a sword and impress Gotham, your entry into their order was guaranteed. In a natural formation known only as the Mist Valley, a number of residents have mastered a technique known as reading the wind. Their shamans teach that all living things breathe the same air that gives them life, and as people of the Sacred Valley, they can use their breath to connect and communicate with the natural denizens of the valley, counting even the birds among them as their allies.
I do not see.
As such, their ranks include spellcasters, winged beasts, and the embodiments of thunder. Lastly, in the Palakti Tundra is a clan devoted to maintaining a prison that houses a world-ending threat, the Order of the Ice Barrier. Legends tell that these dragons were sealed long ago, for if given the chance, they would freeze the world with their icy rage. There are a number of spellcasters in the Order, but you'll also find warriors, aquas, sea serpents, an insect if you just count one of the denizens, and even a spirit from beyond the mortal coil. So dedicated is their conviction to maintaining the barrier. Records do not show how this conflict began, or even for what purpose. Were they set in motion by some outside force, manipulating their actions from afar? Are they fighting for some resource that we are unaware of? Or is it just the nature of these tribes to do battle? Looking at their hierarchies, we can see that not a single diplomat or politician makes up their higher-ranking members. And while I don't mean to imply that such professions only seek to bring about peace, they're certainly in a better position to do so than the military. Flamvel Uruquizas is described as being the leader of a corps that commands squads for scouting, self-defense, and assault. The X-Sabers are exclusively a group of warriors, a profession that is famously trained for combat, not statecraft. The Ice Barriers are led by a trio of generals, and the inhabitants of Mist Valley are ruled by Thunderlord, who is a bold and daring soldier. None of these characters are ever shown to report to anyone above them, implying that all of them are ruled by their militaries, and it's rarely in the best interest for these kinds of leaders to seek means of establishing peace, for fear of being perceived as weak. And weakness is very unbecoming of a soldier, especially of one who would rule an entire tribe. So the war will continue, as it always has been, from now until the end of time. Or rather, it would have continued if it wasn't for the introduction of a force from beyond the stars that would threaten to consume their entire world.
What?
One day, a meteorite smashed into Terminus, and what was left behind baffled observers from all tribes. Something hitting the ground at that speed should have shattered into 1,000,000 pieces, but instead, it was intact, and in a very foreboding shape. A humanoid skull. There were a number of other oddities as well. Only one half of the meteorite seemed to be affected by the atmospheric friction, while the other side was stone cold. But even stranger, the heated side was perpendicular to their impact angle, implying something had rotated it in the lower atmosphere. The heated side was also covered in a number of rocky spines, which slowly melted into a viscous gray goo that pooled inside the impact crater. If the tribes had investigated further, this threat may have been stopped before it even began. But scientists were too valuable of a resource to be wasting their time experimenting on a weird rock that fell from space when the enemy was at their doorstep. Little did they know that the real enemy had already made themselves at home, and things were about to get much worse.
What?
To call the worms an intergalactic empire would be attributing to them an air of culture and sentience that they simply do not have. While they have taken over a number of worlds across the universe, it has nothing to do with conquest or glory. It's simply about feeding and spreading their species from one solar system to the next. A primal instinct to consume and reproduce. An instinct that, in and of itself, isn't evil, but their evolutionary path had given them tools that were too powerful and tenacious for—
Why is it dripping? What is it holding?
any undefended
Why
planet
is
to
it
keep in
folding
check.
his hands so
But
politely?
instead of starving themselves out after having
Why does
stripped
it
their
have
home planet of all
boobs?
its resources, they had developed a way to find new resources. Their dead planet would become a launching point for a seed that could travel through the depths of space, finding new worlds to feed on. However, these vessels couldn't carry their species in their native state. To carry them as they were in their vast numbers, they'd need a vessel that was larger than their host planet could ever hope to launch. But even this was not an obstacle. Much like how the worms could dissolve their physical bodies to combine and mold themselves, as they had done to cover their entire planet, they could also do so to fit an uncountable number of worm cells into a compact meteorite. The drawback was that once they had deconstructed themselves, they couldn't reform in their previous state, as all their genetic memory would be destroyed as part of the process, and they wouldn't be able to reform at all without some kind of outside stimulus, effectively resetting the participating worms to a zero state. But even that was turned into an advantage.
I hate
After
that it's
all,
goopy.
each new world would come with its own unique set of obstacles,
I hate
and their
that it's
ability to
goopy.
rapidly mutate in response to their environment meant that they could solve just about any problem they faced given enough time, with a reproduction speed that would give them an ample amount of bodies to test these mutations through trial and error to refine them. Once launched into space, the freezing cold would put these cells into hibernation for as long as they needed to be. The worms didn't have any sophisticated technology to target a new planet, but fire enough meteorites and eventually you'll hit something. Upon atmospheric re-entry, the cells would use the heat to reactivate and would consume any local material to begin reconstituting their numbers. So by the time the tribes had noticed the first new worms crawling out of the W Nebula meteorite, it was already too late. The invasion had begun.
So they're like parasites? So they're like parasites, right? So like when they get out, they like attach other things to reform? Is that how that works? Oh no!
It wasn't long before the four major tribes declared a ceasefire. The worms didn't, or maybe even couldn't, distinguish between the factions. Everything was just food to them, and they certainly had the numbers to fight on all fronts. However, despite this, none of the tribes were comfortable with joining forces. Standing shoulder to shoulder with your enemy on the battlefield, after all, was a quick way to find a dagger in your back. Besides, this threat would be quelled soon enough. Despite the worms' massive numbers, the Flamvels had no issue with burning their forces to a crisp. The X-Sabers cut them down in droves, and the terrain of Mist Valley forced the worms into tightly packed formations, making them easy targets for lightning magic and the odd falling boulder. But none of them had yet to experience the worm's secret weapon, not like the citizens of Palakti had. While initially unable to withstand the region's bitter cold, the worms soon mutated into forms that thrived in the environment, an adaptation that was more crippling to the ice barrier's defenses than any weapon could hope to be. Palakti's defenses relied almost entirely on their home field advantage. Not even the Flamvel could keep alight in their frigid temperatures for long, so their defensive forces had focused on fighting small but well-prepared strike teams. So when the worms arrived in a giant horde, there was little they could do but watch as their perimeter fortresses were overrun. With all hope seemingly lost, a secret sect of the Order of the Ice Barrier came forth to offer a solution that could save them all.
It was just
See,
cool
the
flavor
orthodoxical
text.
understanding of the barrier is that it was there to seal away the dragons to keep them from causing an ice age that would extinguish all life on Terminus. Duloran, the Tiger King, was the only mythical force that was needed to help protect the people in these dire times, or so the generals had said. But many of the clergy came forth and challenged this interpretation of their ancient teachings. They claimed that the barrier was not in place to keep the people safe, but to keep the dragons safe. The sacred mirror that was made to control the dragons meant that they could also be wielded as weapons of war, and in the hands of an incompetent leader could lead to the world's destruction. But if ever there was a time for the dragon's power to be used for good, it was now. The generals were firmly against this, convinced of their understanding of the ancient texts, but in the end, they relented to the clergy's demands. Publicly, they continued to denounce the usage of the dragons as a defense measure, worrying for the safety of the people. But privately, they knew this was their chance to embarrass and delegitimize their opposing faction. The dragon would run rampant, villainizing those who sought to free it, and if it died fighting this new threat, then all the better. To that end, they only allowed a single dragon to be unleashed, to limit the possible danger. With mirror in hand, the clergy went about unsealing the first of the 3 dragons, Brianak.
No!
Named for an ancient
Where's
spear
my
that
cousin?
felled many foes, it was unleashed upon the battlefield, and although the worms had adapted to the cold, it was nothing compared to the dread frost the legendary dragon of the ice barrier unleashed upon the invading army. For now, Palakti was safe, and while not disgraced, the wisdom of the 3 generals had been brought to question, and had been proven to not be as infallible as they had claimed. Moving forward, unleashing more of the dragons as the threat escalated would be an option on the people's minds, and that terrified the generals. They would have to bring this invasion to a swift and decisive conclusion, so something like this would never happen again. And so, in desperation,
brand
they
on
were the
Twitter,
first to offer a hand in solidarity to the other tribes, not just as a ceasefire, but as a fully fledged alliance.
Is the ice barrier just Twitter jail?
Thankfully for the generals, the other factions had begun to realize that the worms were not an infestation to be taken lightly. As they had adapted to Palakti's cold, so too had they adapted to Ignium's heat. The ones near the Everblade mountain range were developing hides that resisted the blades of the X-Sabers, and the ones invading Mist Valley began to develop claws and other appendages that could help them easily navigate their terrain. It was clear that, without some kind of decisive action, the worms would continue to develop in ways that would leave the tribes defenseless. Then all would be lost. And so, with a shaky but necessary peace having been established, a new organization was founded that would pool the knowledge and resources of all the factions together to create new weapons and tactics to fight the worms. An organization dedicated to wiping out the villains who wished to steal their planet from them, an organization known as Justice. The tribes went to work immediately and found that they complemented themselves far more than they could have imagined. The X-Sabers had been using the rich mineral deposits of the Everblade mountain range to provide raw material for their gear, but their mining capabilities were too small scale to supply 3 other nations, not to mention their forges wouldn't be able to produce enough worked steel even if they did have the material. However, generations of living in a tundra region had forced the citizens of Palakti to develop tools for drilling, carving, and otherwise removing large chunks of ice to expand their cities, and to mine their own mountains. In cooperation with the X-Sabers, these tools were adapted for use in the Everblades, and while the metal couldn't be prepared at a large scale where it was found, Ignium was essentially a giant furnace. And on top of that, the Fiery Nation was also the most technologically advanced, and were able to produce their anti-worm machines immediately after they had the material to do so. And all of this was transported relatively safely by means of the winged members of Mist Valley. While the worms had found a way to scale sheer cliff faces, they hadn't adapted many forms that could fly, so as long as they used their wings to carry supplies, they wouldn't have to worry about their convoys being intercepted. However, despite their system of sharing and distributing supplies, Justice hadn't begun to truly work together. While their stated aim was to share resources and knowledge, the factions were far more guarded about the latter. While they had jointly discovered that the worms embodied an energy source that wasn't found among any of the tribes on Terminus, knowledge they would try to use to enhance the efficacy of their weapons, their exchange of ideas stopped there, which in turn meant that they just ended up making robots that emulated their own forces, certainly stronger and more resilient, but did little to take advantage of their newfound knowledge, and thus did not last much longer than the warriors of their respective tribes. This failure of the first wave of machines, collectively known as the Allies of Justice, strained the relationship between the member factions even more. Why risk working together when the results would be the exact same? But where many saw a point of contention, others saw opportunity. In a last-ditch effort to prove that unity was the key, some purveyors of the X-Sabers cross-sword style met with some of the shamans of the Mist Valley, and together they drafted plans for a machine that would combine the X-Saber signature style with Mist Valley's lightning magic, and thus Ally of Justice Thunder Armor was born. This new addition was a rousing success. It was strong enough to punch through the scales of many of the worms it encountered, and its lightning blades meant that even targets that were close by couldn't avoid being incinerated by their arcing energy. And with Thunder Armor dominating the field, the other ally of Justice's
Yeah, she may be sexy, but keep it in your pants.
Leading the charge, the rest of the machines could focus on routing disorganized enemies. And so with their first major win under their belts, Justice went to work on building their first truly collaborative project. It had been discovered that the worms had a hive mind. While lacking few commanding units, they still seemed to work in perfect harmony. Even if one of the higher order worms was destroyed, a number of drones could meld into a new one of these higher order worms and continue with coordinating attacks. But this implied that an intelligence was orchestrating the invaders from afar, identifying when a local commander was necessary for smaller scale warfare, and ensuring that these units were provided with one if they had the resources.
Oh, he's
But if the core of
creepy
this hive
looking.
mind
The
could be
Twitter hive
eliminated,
mind.
it was theorized that the worms would
It
no
all
longer be
come
able
full
to form a
circle.
cohesive offensive, and their ranks would crumble. And so, Project Core Destroyer was set into motion. Using designs and advancements made by all the tribes, Ally of Justice Core Destroyer had a special sensor that could lock onto the worm's unique energy signature, then fire an energy pulse that would render the worm
Please,
cells
I don't want the
inert,
K-pop
essentially
to come at
returning them to their
me.
liquid forms
The worm
and
for all
preventing them
those
from binding with any more worm cells. This proved effective in smaller scale skirmishes, but in larger battles it was quickly discovered that it had a fatal flaw. The worms had always been tricky combatants, and had a knack for hiding themselves until just the last moment before striking. These tactics hid the worm's energy signatures until it was almost too late, and while Core Destroyer could handle a few worms using this tactic, they couldn't keep up with hundreds. Despite this, Core Destroyer had provided important combat data, so Justice decided to build upon this current model while also implementing a novel solution. Instead of waiting for their sensors to confirm if the enemy had a worm energy signature, it would be much quicker to disprove their target as an ally of justice. Their energy signatures were almost the exact opposite of the worms, and while the invaders were good at hiding their signatures, they didn't yet have the capability to mimic them. To cut down on processing times, they only programmed it to check for fellow ally of justices as non-targets, and while it was assumed this wouldn't be a problem as the anti-worm energy pulse was meant to only work against worm cells, it tragically proved that it was also effective on other organic life forms.
You see what
However,
I mean?
despite the risks, it did not deter Justice from this design. It was decided that deployments consisting only of Ally of Justice machines would be deployed to major fronts, and the results spoke for themselves.
The thing in the
Core
ground.
Destroyer Mark II, dubbed Catastor, ravaged the worm forces, their sensors able to detect enemies in all directions, and could respond within moments using their multitude of energy pulse emitters, eradicating anyone that came close. Mutation after mutation was tested, but not a single attempt at reconfiguring their biology made them any more resilient to this new superweapon. As Catastor neared the home base of the worms, their central intelligence decided that fighting, for the moment, was futile, so ordered that it be moved deeper into the continent, leaving behind a number of higher order worms to cover their retreat. The ensuing battle was savage, and in the end, all the higher order worms were dispatched, though Catastor was heavily damaged. When agents of justice arrived to recover Catastor's body, they made an incredible discovery.
Why did they give them such cool lore then if they just suck?
Behind the W Nebula meteorite, and upon examining the material it was made of, found that it was made entirely of inert worm cells, solidified and fashioned to be the vessel of their interplanetary voyage. But unlike the liquid matter that the worms dissolved into after they died, their cells deteriorating rapidly before they could be studied, these cells maintained their original structure, which included the neural connections between those cells that allowed for their hive mind connection. In essence, they had stumbled upon organic blueprints that, when applied correctly, could increase the computing power of the Ally of Justice, or really any machine, by an enormous factor. The worms were slowly, but surely, evolving to keep pace with the weapons and tactics of the four factions. However, it seems that through teamwork and perseverance, the organization known as Justice was making progress leaps and bounds ahead of what their invaders could keep up with. But despite having reached a new high point in their collaborative war effort, the organization was about to encounter its next big threat to its unity, both from within and below. But that is a story for another time.
That was all.
Thank you all so much.
We finished one already? Oh my god, I felt that felt like 5 minutes. Oh my god. On to the next one.
In a world both very far
That felt
and
so
very
fast.
near to us all, a tale of grand import is unfolding. A tale where adventure lies just over the horizon, where good and evil do battle to determine the fate of the world, and where all is not what it may appear to be. Hello everyone, Golden Nova here.
Oh, it gets more messy. Really?
It's time to continue the chronicles of a tale that is still being told about never-changing land. Sit back, relax, and listen as I tell you all about the living history of the Duel Terminal.
Oh. I just want to see when my cousin comes.
Part 2. An alliance broken. 3 months have passed since Catastor and the other allies of justice stormed the main worm encampment, and while the hive mind was able to escape, they were not able to take with them the W Nebula meteorite.
Okay.
The scientists of Justice, an organization made up of the Mist Valley, Flamfell, X-Saber, and Ice Barrier tribes, had found that the meteorite was actually made of inert worm cells. And by studying their biology, Justice could explosively enhance their technology by increasing processing power and simplifying communication between units. It was an astonishing find, but not one that was universally celebrated by everyone.
How many times are you going to bring this up? You've been outvoted. Starting next week, we're moving forward with the extraterrestrial application projects.
Call it what it is.
I just said extraterrestrial application.
Worms! You want to take everything we worked for, everything we built together, and make it like them.
This is like it. Oh my god, I'm sorry. To get back on the Twitter lore, this man is writing his tweet longer on worms right now. He's like, the worms need to be stopped. They can't keep terrorizing Twitter anymore. And like writing about all the crimes they've committed.
Creatures, we're improving upon our designs based on what we've learned. We can't turn down a blessing just because it came from our enemies.
Learn? We cracked open their husks and sucked the knowledge from them like a parasite. We didn't learn, we consumed. Does that sound familiar to you?
The flame war with the worms! No
Look
more
at these
bad
proposals. A device to capture worms instead of destroying them. A supercomputer that will control the Ally of Justice machines, quote, as per the worm hive mind. And don't think I don't know about the cosmic gateway.
Not the gateway.
How do you know about that?
I'm not wasting my time revealing my sources to a lying snake. Who else knows?
Oh my god, the Twitter beef is strong! The Twitter beef is strong!
Arukwazos reported that his scientists discovered that the worms had some
Have you tried the BTS coffee? It's awful!
Something that allowed them to travel through the depths of space.
It's awful!
We haven't fully figured out why these worms aren't using that power against us as a weapon, but the sooner we can master it, the safer we'll be.
And why wasn't I informed? We had a deal, all of us. Any major decision.
This BTS iced coffee is
this
disgusting.
council for approval, and now I find you're playing with the laws of the natural world behind my back.
It was simple, scientific eagerness. If the experiment had succeeded, we would have rid the world of the invaders right then and there. We were looking for the right time to tell you.
Oh no!
But then you had that outburst about the Gen X, and
we
decided it was for the best not to bring it up.
Outburst? Outburst? Those are living creatures, stewards of the planet, and you want to turn them into another wave of toy soldiers?
It's those toy soldiers that have allowed us to survive this war. And the Gen X are as dedicated to fighting the worms as we are. We're just giving them the tools to fight, and we need to fight harder than ever now. Every day we don't run them down is another day they push deeper into the Naturilia Forest and the Durac Badlands. That means more resources they can use to multiply, and we're already getting word of worms that are even stronger than the last. And what's worse is that they're getting smarter. They've been disrupting our supply lines, so we still haven't been able to restore Catastor to full combat readiness. We are fighting for the fate of the world here, and I will not let some naive mystic who still lives in a cave get in the way of progress.
I will not be spoken to in such a manner. Our tribes came together to create the Allies of Justice, and despite our many years of battle, many years of war and animosity, despite every instinct in my body screaming at me not to trust you all, I was proud to call you all my companions.
No!
But it's clear to me
oh my god,
no, this valley is a backwoods people, and I will no longer partake in an alliance that does not respect us or the planet we are fighting
for.
I'm sorry. You're right, that was very unfair of me to say.
Damn, this is so sad.
But you have to understand,
boys,
there are things we need to do that—
You want to defeat our enemy by becoming our enemy, and there is no future in this. And until you all can realize this, there will be no compromise.
Sheesh.
The Thunderlord hereby dissolves the involvement of Mist Valley in justice.
No.
Grisham, wait!
Don't you dare speak my name again. You have insulted me and my people, so do not think you can use honeyed words to convince me. Farewell.
But much led up to this falling out, because despite a strong counteroffensive, the disabling of Catastor had revealed an unfortunate flaw in the alliance. A common enemy did not so easily make common friends. The generals of the Ice Barrier were incentivized to end this war as soon as possible, not just for their own nation's survival, but the longer it dragged on, the more political power their rivals in the church would gain, as they were now viewed as the only faction in Palakti that could protect the people with the power of the imprisoned dragons. Even now, there was talk of unsealing Gungnir to apply pressure to the fleeing worm invaders, and it was all Grunnard could do as the Palakti representative of the Alliance to assure his people that was not necessary. He pushed and pushed for the allies of justice to strike at the worms even without their ace machine. But every battle that did not result in a decisive victory meant that the worms gathered more data and thus grew stronger. Looking for new territory to invade, the worms began to explore new avenues of expansion. Attacking the tribes head-on had been useful for jumpstarting their new evolutions, but now that they were in retreat, it was better to avoid conflict than to agitate it. And the two most viable biomes they decided on were the Naturia Forest and the Jurak Badlands. The former being a lush paradise rife with resources, populated only by plants and animals, with no military force in sight. The Jurak Badlands was similarly free of organized combatants, and while this environment was much more hazardous, their time in the ignium sulfur fields had provided them with the heat resistance necessary to endure. And not only did the Badlands offer rich mineral deposits the Naturia forests could not, that same extreme heat meant that only the Flamvel, and whichever ally of justice machines they could muster, were all that could pursue them, keeping the worms safe from a coordinated assault from justice. However, the worms' burgeoning understanding of the world they were attacking led them to make some assumptions that would prove very inconvenient. See, while no tribe held sway over the Naturia forest, it was not without its defenders. While the initial wave of inhabitants didn't have the kind of power to resist the encroaching horde, older and wiser beings would join the conflict soon enough. It felt like, for everything the worms did to advance, the Naturia retaliated in kind, using their home field advantage to pay back any aggression twice over. Likewise, in the Jurak Badlands, the worms discovered a less subtle threat. While they had fought weapon and beast alike among the tribes of justice, nothing matched the savagery of the dinosaurs' attacks, using massive jaws and piercing talons to rip open worm hide that had been cultivated over months of combating the X-Sabers. And their lack of an organized military did not translate to a lack of coordination, as several millennia of evolution had honed their pack tactics instincts. But despite these advantages, no single battle could drive the worms out. Both the Naturia and the Jurak were strong, but neither could match the numbers of the worms. With justice in disarray, sufficient backup could not be sent to help the Naturia or the Jurak, and prolonged conflicts are where the worms shine. And after evolving to meet the threat of their new enemies, the worms developed two new advantages. To safeguard the hive mind, the worms sent it along with one army, while a decoy was made to accompany the other. But since the hive mind would be so far away from their forces, the decoy was given the capability to coordinate the large swarm of worms that defended them. And as the battles raged on, they both evolved into powerful, distinct forms. In the Naturia Forest, the Worm Queen began to utilize their new, vast, and still growing intelligence to beat the Naturia at their own game, consuming, altering, then regurgitating their minions into forms more suited for the verdant battlefield. No longer constrained by their need for stimuli to adapt, the Queen could use their imagination and critical thinking skills, as well as their mastery of worm biology, to simply craft the perfect soldier for any given situation. In the Jurak Badlands, the Worm King was a perfection of all the physical traits the hive mind had learned over their lengthy invasion. Ablative patterned hide that deflected anything but the most direct blow, with regenerating, chitinous armor beneath to stave off any truer strikes. There was adaptive material just underneath that protected the king from
Also, I'm sorry. Hold on, I'm sorry. I need... We gotta talk about this. Oh, fuck, wait. Is it... What is this? This right here. What is this leaking out of it? Why is it shaped like that? What is this goo? What is this goo coming out of it? What is this goo? Why is it shaped like this? Stop with the war mussy! Stop this! I need an adult. Where are my Twitter admins at?
Extreme temperatures and a muscle structure that's
Why are we
all
doing
flightless
I
could still
need-
launch them
where are the
high enough
Twitter
into the air
admins?
to attack
Where-
aerial
can the
threats
Twitter
without
admins get
taking
back
any
together,
damage
please?
when returning to the ground.
Can the Twitter
However, their
admins
most
stop
formidable
fighting and work
weapon
back
was their
together? To
ability to
delete
turn
this,
their
please?
minions
I
into
don't want to
living
look at
weapons.
anymore.
With but a touch, the king could cause the cells of any given worm to start a violent chain reaction, and when thrown, would cause a horrendous explosion
Twitter
that would
admins,
rend
come back,
flesh from
please.
bone.
Work
An
back
attack
together,
not even
fight,
the most
fix your
resilient of the
differences. I need
Jurax
you to
could
fix
defend
this.
against. But the introduction of the
admins
apex
assemble.
worms was but their first blessing. The second came
Oh,
in the
the
form of
plant-
the worms
see,
that lost their
logic, I've
lives
already
in
seen it,
battle.
don't worry.
For even in death, the worms still have a duty to their swarm.
Wait,
As a
look
final
at,
act of revenge,
Look at Worm King's TCG art? Okay, give me 1 second. Pause. Worm King TCG. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. They covered
Welcome
him.
to membership, bestie.
Oh, thank God, they fixed him. They fixed him. they gave him like a, what's it called? What is the word I'm looking for? Like a cup. They put a cup on him. Don't worry, he's protected. He's protected. Thank you, localization company from Konami, for fixing this for me. This is disgusting. No War Muzzy? No, because it's gross. Why does he look like that? Why do they keep putting War Muzzies on him?
or perhaps a noble sacrifice to aid their companions, or even just a thoughtless but purposeful biological function, their discorporated bodies began to sink into the ground, these worm cells using the last of their power to terraform anything they touched. All this time, the worms had adapted to the landscape of Terminus, but now, Terminus would adapt to them.
What?
Fields and forests that were once fertile and vibrant lay sallow and rotten. Rivers and lakes turned from crystal clear to viscous and gray, like a pool of poisonous mercury. Even the air itself began to grow heavy and stale, almost impossible to breathe. Everything the worms touched began to look like desolate rock floating in the void of space.
Is this where Despia
Even if
comes
the worms
from?
lost a battle, they would still claim the territory.
Oh my god, wait, you know what this is? You know what this is?
Making it all the easier
this
for
is
the
when
invaders
Elon
to
took over
launch their
Twitter!
next
And
attack.
then it's the Twitter breaking! Oh my god,
Spurred
it's all
on by
making
Grunard's
sense.
desire
It's all
for a
making
swift
sense.
end
Is
to the
this just
conflict,
commentary on
Arukquazaz,
Twitter?
the commander of the Flamvel armies, disclosed that his scientists had discovered something incredible while studying
No,
the
I know
inert
it's a part of
cells.
Brandon.
The
It's
secret
how we got to
of
like
bending
Despia being
space,
nasty.
opening portals from one
The
place
Brazil.
to another, turning
That's
the
what I
fantasy
mean.
of travel
It's
to
not
distant
actually
stars
Despia.
into
I know
a
it's
reality.
not. Don't worry, I know
Grunard
this is like a separate
insisted on
thing.
testing an experimental
I know
cosmic
this is, like,
gateway
separate.
built using the resources and technology of justice, but with knowledge
Is this
gleaned
when we
from
get
worm
the nasty
biology.
Despia
And
word?
while Arukquazaz was more than excited to see if the tech would work, Gotham's objected, as the Thunderlord of Mist Valley was not present.
Actually,
The Worm Queen,
Brazil?
hearing what might happen if Catastra was
no,
ever
you had
revived,
to have
sent
been
strike
there.
teams across
During the
Terminus
last,
to make sure supply
Lord
lines
Live
were
stream, we
disrupted.
did,
Their new flying foes
Brandon.
among the Naturia and Jurak, providing ample experience for the Queen to make their own flying minions. The Thunderlord was the only one strong enough to withstand the attacks, but these small, infrequent shipments meant that Catastra's repairs were progressing at a snail's pace. However, the Thunderlord would not falter, as there was
Not
only
the
a few more trips that
Wormacy.
needed to be made before Catastra was brought back online. Grunard scoffed at the concern, but seeing that dismissal wouldn't sway Gotham's, argued that, should the gateway be a success, then Thunderlord would no longer need to risk their lives on these solo missions. The worms could be scooped up and deposited into the depths of space with no further loss of life. And Gotham's, finding it difficult to argue with their logic, having fostered a deep respect for their former enemy and not wanting to see them come to harm, relented. The cosmic gateway was activated, and...
Ah, it appears we've finally been set free. And who were the ones who were so gracious to free us? Warriors in an uneasy alliance. This'll do just nicely. Let us send along a little gift to tide them over until our arrival.
Nothing happened.
What?
At least, nothing seemed to happen.
What?
Official reports would claim that there wasn't enough energy to maintain the portal, but unbeknownst to everyone involved,
What?
contact was made, brushing against the borders of a fabled realm. But
That
none of
voice
that
was was
was on
Eli!
Godum's
Oh my
mind.
God,
As if a
stop!
seed had been planted in his mind by a patient, devious gardener, the sprout of an idea took hold and would not let go. This all had been
The
for the
original
Thunderlord,
That's
for
what I'm saying!
Grisham's
This is the
own
original-
good, but he
We're-
would
we're
despise
linking
it if
lore
he found
together,
out the
besties!
council had
This is
moved
the
forward
original
with testing
lore
experimental
review!
technology, especially if it was based on worm
They
finding.
freed Elon!
But what choice did they have?
Stop.
After all, the residents of the Mist Valley were just superstitious mystics living in caves. What would they know of progress? Thus, he made the other two council members
lore is
swear
all
that they would not
connected.
tell the Thunderlord of what had happened. Godums believed that
If
if
we're
the
linking
truth was known,
if all the
it
lore
would
is
rend
actually
their
truly
alliance
linked,
to
then
pieces.
that means
And because of
Despia
this
was
secrecy,
formed over a
much
Twitter
to the
argument.
gardener's delight,
You love to see it.
Godums was right. But
Why
despite
did he
this,
go?
a ray of sunshine did break through the clouds of melancholy that hung over Terminus. Because out of the terraformed muck the worms had
The
left
original
behind,
worm must eat
new
Terminus.
beings emerged. Lying deep within the ground, these new life forms sprung forth fully formed and ready to accomplish their mission. Immediately, they began to reverse the effects of the worm's terraforming. The air was
Nice.
cleared, the water purified, even the
Nice.
ones with flames erupting from them had a part to play, burning down the corrupted forests so that their ashes could revitalize the land anew. After some observing, it appeared that, while mechanical in form, they were some kind of combination of biology and machinery. They
Cool.
worked tirelessly to fix the damage done to the planet, knowing neither exhaustion nor boredom like a machine, but their seemingly dense outer shells were
episode 2.
soft to the touch. They were not cold like iron, but had a gentle warmth.
Oh,
Not
nice.
attending to duties that required extreme temperatures notwithstanding. These seemed to be creatures born of the Earth itself to save itself. And so, since they seemed to be working to safeguard the planet for the next generation, it was proposed by Aruquazos that they be called the Gen Nexts.
Oh.
But after some workshopping, it was shortened to Gen X. They continued their toil, communicating with neither
Gen X
justice
sucks
nor
too.
the
Stop
worms.
making
However,
cool archetypes,
if the
they
latter
suck.
came close to investigate, the Gen X would launch into a fervent, if ineffectual, assault. The Gen X hated the creatures that would arrive to ruin the environments they were safeguarding, but they were built to heal, not to harm. But the instinct to protect the planet was there, and this got the gears in Aruquazos' head spinning once again. It was discovered that, despite being sworn enemies, the Gen X and worms shared a very distinct characteristic: a hive mind. But where the worms had a dominant core that commanded the swarm, the Gen X used it to share information, driven by a
Oh.
common cause of conservation rather than having a single authority.
I
And what was
see.
even better, the Gen X communicated using a method similar to how they controlled the non-autonomous Ally of Justice units. So, by modifying existing Ally of Justice controllers, using their knowledge of the worm hive mind as a basis, they were able to make a Gen X controller. With this,
Nice!
they could transmit combat data from each of the tribes, keying in on the elements that resonated particularly well depending on the Gen X. And while the plan was just to send data, the information itself seemed to have a profound effect. Simply by knowing,
Oh, he's
the
so
Gen X's
cute!
biological components began to morph and evolve, with their mechanical components following suit. And Gen
so
X, under the direct support of the
so
controller, morphed
baby.
into forms much more suited for combat. And so, Justice had gained an advantage that not even their combined might could obtain. A tireless force of combat-ready soldiers that could be deployed at a moment's notice. Mostly because, wherever fighting broke out, they were already there.
Yeah.
But it was only a matter of time before the Thunderlord of Mist Valley discovered what was going on.
Oh,
He was
no.
just as happy as anyone to find out that the Guardians of the planet were rising up to help reclaim the land, but when he discovered that the Flamvell were modifying them for war, he was conflicted.
Oh,
Had the Gen X
no.
asked for this? Not likely, as they didn't really have a way to communicate with them, but it was clear how dedicated they were to fighting the worms. The Gen X would be doing that with or without the direction of justice.
do have
When
titties.
someone's
I will
homeland
say
is
that.
under attack
You
and
do
they
have some
want to
big
fight to
badonkers.
defend it, you don't tell them to flee for safety, you give them a weapon and train them as best you can so they can survive the coming ordeal. As the chief of his tribe, this was a situation the Thunderlord had been in many times. This wasn't much different.
A rather convenient excuse to experiment on such innocent creatures, wouldn't
Is
you
this
say?
Elon?
A voice rang out in the Thunderlord's mind, as clear and loud as a clarion call.
What is this madness? Explain yourself!
I am one of the Constellars, the heavenly
this where
host that comes to
Constellars
save
comes
the world
from?
in times of great strife and darkness.
Wait.
The
Constellars, the like Exceeds monsters? Right? How do they work
angelic
into this?
beings from among the stars, an ancient legend known across all of Terminus. The Thunderlord was both elated and confused.
Forgive my rudeness, but I am certain Urukwazos means them no harm.
Harm or no, this alliance known as Justice is quickly spiraling out of control. Technological advancements are being made without the slightest bit of caution, consuming knowledge and warping the world around them.
Wait.
Does that sound familiar to you?
But all progress is based on learning and adapting.
Sus?
Surely the worms have something we can learn from, despite how vile they are.
Learn? These scientists cracked open their husks and sucked the knowledge from them like a parasite. And the more they're indulged, the further they'll go. The worms expand endlessly for the sake of survival. It's not malice, it's just what they do. And in the face of an invasion that threatens to wipe them off the face of Terminus, well, I'm sure Justice claims they're doing just the same. But who's to say how far they'll go before they're stopped? They've even begun trying to communicate with the worms.
What?
The worms warp space to travel the distance between planets. It's a power that Urukwazos has discovered while examining their corpses,
So is
and has
Elon
already
the
used that
female?
knowledge to make a cosmic gateway to contact them. Who's to say they aren't looking for a way to buy their freedom at your expense? Or even worse,
Oh wait, is it?
become just like them.
It is
Oh, thank you.
perhaps true that Drunard and his companions have their political scruples, and
Maybe.
Urukwazos is perhaps a bit too eager to test the limits of his scientists' research. But these are people that are looking to build a future for their tribe.
Yeah.
If nothing else, Gotham's is a stalwart, honorable man who would never betray the trust of his companions.
Oh, Grisham. It was Gotham's who swore the council to secrecy on this.
Huh?
No.
The truth is painful, but it shall set you free. You are surrounded on all sides by warlords who are too ambitious for their own good. But you must look out for your own tribe. They're depending on you to keep them safe.
What must I do to help them?
There is a council meeting soon, yes? Go and confront them about the ruinous path they are on. Perhaps words will be enough to sway them. But if not,
His boyfriend lied to him.
action is always an alternative.
No, you hate to see
Grisham,
it.
the Thunderlord of the Mist Valley, brought his concerns to the council, but to no avail. He was so disgusted with Justice's insistence on adopting the form and function of their enemy that he withdrew him and his tribe from the alliance.
Aw,
But he knew
shit.
that if he simply left, all the advancements his people had helped create would remain, and continue to enslave those poor creatures. So when he left, he meant to take everything with him. It would be painful for everyone, but the Thunderlord knew it was the right choice. Anything to keep Justice from walking down the wrong path. On his way out, the great Thunderlord of the Mist Valley barged into the repair bay that Catastra had been in these many months and ripped it to shreds.
No!
Without any power, its wide-angle weapons
Did he
defense
wipe
systems
his
were
Twitter?
useless.
Oh
And
my
to make
God.
sure no more
He
could be
wiped his
made,
Twitter.
Thunderlord stormed
No, he
the
wiped
records
all the
room, gathering all of his
tweets.
people's
He wiped all the
contributions that he could handle,
tweets.
burned the rest, then crushed the central computer core that housed all the digital backups that Urukwazos had made. The Mist Valley had well and truly left. This was a
He
huge
deleted
blow
his
for him.
Twitter account.
Computers were well within the Flamvel's capacity to make. The natural heat of the ignium sulfur fields made it simple to mold the raw material, and the more delicate pieces of circuitry could be built on
tweets are
site. But it was hard, expensive work, so despite how important that information was, no backups had ever been made. So there was no recovering the data within the computer. It could be remade, with all the knowledge of the ice barriers, Flamvels, and X-Sabers, but they could rely upon the Mist
blocked his
Valley
boyfriend
no
Twitter
longer.
account. No!
Retaliatory action would not come. Thunderlord acted too swiftly for their defenses to kick in. An army could be sent to pursue Thunderlord, but the worms were too constant a threat, and the forces could not be spared to do so. But even beyond all that, an even more pressing matter had been brought to the Council's attention. For almost as soon as the Thunderlord Grisham had left, a new figure arrived and introduced themselves.
My name is Valkyrus, and I have come to offer you salvation.
Thank you all so much
What
for
the
listening to my
fuck?
interpretation of the living
Mr. Golden Nova, sir, you can't keep making, like, it's Elon, that's Elon? You can't keep making videos that, like, entice me so much, so that when they end, I'm like, no! You can't make your videos shittier, Golden Nova, make them shittier! You You can't have him at the edge of my seat like this.
Very near to us all. A tale of grand import.
This next one's 26 minutes.
A tale where adventure lies just over the horizon, where good and evil do battle to determine the fate of the world, and where all is not what it may appear to be. Hello, everyone.
He's kind of fabulous,
Golden
though.
Nova here, and today it's time to continue the chronicles of a tale that is still being told about never-changing land. Sit back, relax, and listen as I tell you all about the living history of the Duel Terminal.
Alright, bestie, have good evening. Look, too.
Part 3. A Decisive Blow. Many stories have been told of angelic beings who forsake the duties of their station and are cast down as punishment. Sometimes, the rebels are justified in their actions, thrashing against the restraints of an oppressive system before being punished for their disobedience. But other times, these dissidents are just that, selfish souls looking to profit from their position. The Constellars, an angelic race that looks upon Terminus as its distant guardian, was not immune to this. A rising faction among them held fast to a new decree: be faithful to your desires. After all, they had been granted so much power and influence by their own god, who was equally as distant. Why not use these gifts for their own enrichment? But the rest of the heavenly host would not be swayed by such base desires, and after a catastrophic war, the selfish seraphim were cast down into the depths of Terminus, not only into the fissures of the earth, but being sealed inside another dimension altogether, never to be seen again. As time went on, these events turned from history into legend, legend into myth, and myth into fabled. From within their imprisoning pit, these fallen angels festered, having nothing to bend to their will save for each other. And over the eons, they developed and honed their skills as master manipulators. Not only were they gifted with silver tongues, they still maintained their divine power. While they lacked the power to create thoughts from nowhere or dominate the will of another, they had a knack for sniffing out negative, shameful thoughts that are kept hidden and expanding them. Minor annoyances became blistering screeds of anger, unease became rampant paranoia, and the occasional bout of low self-esteem spiraled into destructive self-sabotage. If left to their own devices, the fabled may have burned themselves out with their backstabbing and infighting, but eventually, a hierarchy emerged. The fabled most skilled at machinations, combined with a healthy dose of the power that could back them up, rose to the top. The creed, be faithful to your desires, had become more flexible in captivity. To get what you wanted, sometimes you had to show fealty. And the desire on many fableds' mind was to not get slaughtered by their superiors, so servitude was, though begrudgingly, a fair price to pay. But Terminus is a world ruled by cycles. Order begets chaos, and chaos begets order. And so, the hierarchy that had been established, despite the Fabled's drive for self-satisfaction, threatened to sink back into the depths of disorder. For some time, the leader of all the Fabled, Leviathan, had gained the power to open the cage that imprisoned all of them, but saw no point in opening it themselves. After all, they had an entire world at their beck and call. Swinging the doors wide open would give their underlings a chance to escape, maybe even find their own lands to rule. And that wouldn't do it all. But that exact desire for conquest had gripped Leviathan's direct underlings. If Leviathan was a god among the Fableds, then Valkyrus and Raging were the kings. Insurmountably powerful compared to the rest of the Fabled, but still nothing compared to their divine benefactor. The two kings spent what time they could plotting and scheming on how best to overthrow Leviathan. But as fate would have it, as Raging was outlining a particularly gruesome plan of execution, that Valkyrus felt something. A presence hurtling through space. He detected no malice, no bloodlust, nor thirst for conquest. Only a single overriding thought. This intrigued Valkyrus. Normal, animal instincts were of no concern. To desire one's own survival was right, there was nothing special about it. But this was thousands, millions of minds working in tandem, yearning for a single thing. And then, a revelation. Was instinct not the purest, most distilled form of desire? A drive uninhibited by conscious thought, free of any justifications or meddlings of the waking mind?
You know,
Were
on
these
Twitter,
strange,
like when they
alien
have like
creatures
a,
not the pinnacle of
they're
their
like a
own
parody
creed?
account with
Be
Twitter
faithful
Blue.
to
That's
your
who that
desires?
guy is.
But this presence was so far away, not just in the depths of space, but in another dimension entirely. But the kings of the fabled had not achieved their position without cause, political machination notwithstanding.
He's not better than Albert. Get out of
with a
here.
bit of
Albert's
convincing
so
from
beautiful.
Valkyrus, the two outstretched their presence, using their magic to pierce the veil that separated them. A barrier both of empty space and of a separate reality
Get
altogether.
outta here.
And with
Albert's
all
so
their
much
might,
better.
they sent a single, solitary message. Food. And while they could not see, they could hear, and with a few adjustments, the alien entity changed course, careening through the planet's atmosphere, and finally, crash landing on Terminus. Valkyrus and Ragen were exhausted from the endeavor, and having not reaped any immediate benefit, both agreed to rest and return to their plots when the time was right.
Wait. Whoa, wait. Run that back. Did they just say that, like, they sent the worms? Wait. Run that back.
All together.
They were the
and
cause
with
of the
all their
worms.
might, they sent a single, solitary message. Food. And while they could not see, they could hear, and with a few adjustments, the alien entity changed course, careening through the planet's atmosphere, and finally, crash landing on Terminus. Valkyrus and Ragen were exhausted from the endeavor, and having not reaped any immediate benefit, both agreed to rest and return to their plots when the time was right. Several months passed, and the kings had hardly given their brush
They
with other
started the
life forms a
K-pop
second
stands.
thought when more
They're the people on Twitter who
direct
poke at the
contact was made.
K-pop stands
A
and get them
flash
to
of
do
light
things
enveloped
like,
Valkyrus,
do, like,
Ragen,
wacky
and
things.
Leviathan,
That's who they
and
are.
the world they saw was much different than what they had expected. Machinery and gadgets, scientists working on new technology, vastly different than the tribes they remembered dawdling around the surface.
Worms...
Using their magic, they peered into the minds of those who appeared to have the most
like
authority
the really
and
big
drank
top
deep of their
worms,
knowledge.
like the
the
king
W
and the
Nebula
queen,
meteorite
they
that
can
Valkyrus and
definitely
Ragen had
speak,
called to the planet
but I don't think
exploded
most
into a
worms can.
fully fledged invasion force, causing the tribes
That's
to
just the vibes that
unite,
I get,
increasing
though.
the level of their technology, which rose again once they had incorporated the secrets of worm biology. But despite the victories they all shared, the Fabled could see all too clearly the prejudice and fear that lie just below the surface of this alliance. Years of conflict, memories of loved ones slain by other members of this justice, had to be suppressed to make it work, and all that darkness bubbling just beneath the surface was ambrosia to the Fabled. Valkyrus made a single request, to unseal the gates that bound them to their realm so that they may begin to conquer these new lands, and Leviathan, surprisingly, gave their blessing. After all, despite their secrecy, the god could see that the kings were planning a coup, there was no doubt, and this new land full of sin and death would be enough of a prize to motivate the kings to expedite their plan. Better to let Valkyrus and Ragen indulge their desires and spearhead the invasion. And when it was all over, well, a god is due all the spoils that their subjects reap. The kings will do the dangerous work, and Leviathan shall ultimately reign supreme over the new world they had taken. What better way could there be to spit in the Constellars' faces? The seeds of doubt were planted immediately. The members of Justice were fraught with inner turmoil, but their bonds of duty, as well as their
like
common
little
goal to make their lands
Slayers.
free of the worms, meant that they would be formidable opponents should the Fabled decide to invade directly. So Valkyrus decided to take care of both problems in one fell swoop. By using Gothams to create a hostile environment for Grisham, the Thunder Lord of Mist Valley, then convincing Grisham it was in their tribes, in their entire world's best interest, to abandon justice, they had broken up the alliance. And who should arrive at just the right moment but a general of an as yet unknown army seeking to aid the newly fractured justice? With little choice, having lost a significant portion of their forces with the loss of Mist Valley, Justice agreed to add the Fabled to their council. The old tale of how the Constellars had cast them into the depths of the underworld were passed around, but Valkyrus assuaged their fears. These were, after all, myths with little to no historical backing. They did know the Constellars once upon a time, but instead of this catastrophic war the legends speak of, the Fabled decided it was best that, instead of killing one another, that they move to another world and govern it in their own way. But the incredible battles on Terminus echoed so far that they reached even them, and despite their differences with the Constellars, the Fabled still considered the people of this land to be their charges, so it was only natural that they arrived to assist in driving out this extraterrestrial threat. In fact, they would defend the place that was the most difficult for many of the tribes to protect, the Jurak Badlands. Their magic and natural fortitude made them perfect candidates for the job, and there was little argument. Urukuzas and the Flamvel were the only other tribe that could manage it, but with the Fabled supplementing their forces, the surplus resources could be spent on reconstructing the computer core that Grisham had destroyed. While rebuilding Catastor would be next to impossible, parts of it were still salvageable, and were incorporated into the new supercomputer, and since it was built from many of Catastor's parts, it was dubbed the Ally Mind. Not only would it store all the information that Justice had, it could also function as a long-range commander for the Ally of Justice forces out in the field.
Like the god of the gaslighters.
For their part, felt an overwhelming amount of shame for their actions, but they had a whole tribe to look after and could not succumb to such misery, at least in public. Looking to redouble their commitment to justice, as well as enhancing the power of their weapons, Gotham's formed a new legion of knights, the Double X Sabers, outfitting them with armor developed for the Ally of Justice machines, as well as upgrading their weapons with the same technology. It was Gotham's great hope that not only would the improved arms and armor protect his knights, but also strengthen their bond with Justice, wearing the fruits of their collaboration into battle. Grunard had their hands full as well. Though he had hoped the news of an emergent faction coming to aid would quell the church's demands, all it did was inflame them. Once it was mentioned that they would be fighting alongside the Fabled, the church whipped people into a frenzy. The generals had sided with the demons, they said. Their very souls were being sold in exchange for victory, a price none of the citizens of Palaki had agreed to. If they were to be saved by something, let it be the ice dragons that had sworn to protect them since time immemorial. Had, up until this point, been perfectly calm when subjected to the Ice Mirror's power, so any fear the generals had instilled in them about the dragons freezing over the entire world were nothing but a ploy to keep the people in line. The generals scrambled for anything they could use to sway public opinion, but nothing they said took hold, and it wasn't long before the second dragon of the ice barrier was released, Gungnir. And while Brionac stayed behind to defend the city against surprise attacks from the worms, the newly unsealed dragon ventured forth, seeking out the worms wherever they lay and dousing them in the unforgiving cold of Palakti. While they had momentum, the clergy moved to complete the ritual and unseal the final dragon, but the generals drew their weapons in retaliation, committing to stopping the ritual, whatever the cost. And for now, the clergy relented, for they knew a time would come shortly that even the generals could not deny the necessity of the three dragons of ice. However, it was probably Urukuzas that was saddled with the most tasks. In the wake of Catastor's destruction, the Allies of Justice needed a new flagship creation that they could rally behind, and in time, Ally of Justice Field Marshal was created. It lacked Catastor's wide-angle beam weapons, the energy being provided by Mist Valley magic, but made up for it in size and physical might. It was even able to detect hidden worms, using an advanced sensor array that checked for slight but consistent gaps in the worm's camouflage. The only issue remaining was installing a system that could operate the gigantic Field Marshal, but with some long-range assistance from the Ally Mind, a spare Gen X controller was plugged in to handle it. Hopes were high, but its initial foray into battle ended poorly. It was decided that Field Marshal would be perfect to counter the Worm Queen, should they try to use camouflage to gain the upper hand. But this limited understanding of what the Queen was capable of led to its demise. Field Marshal was built to deliver powerful blows, but they were slow and methodical, so the Queen sent in a number of higher order worms, knowing they would have little chance of survival against their new enemy. But they did accomplish their goal of drawing Field Marshal's attention, long enough for a huge swarm of lesser order worms to overtake the Ally of Justice's new flagship machine, and in a matter of minutes was torn to shreds. It was a demoralizing defeat, but as the worms moved on from the skirmish, and the salvage teams came by to extract what they could of Field Marshal, a curious thing happened. A Gen X controller that was accompanying the salvage team moved of its own accord and began digging through the debris, eventually finding the spare controller used to pilot Field Marshal, who in one final gesture passed along their will to see this war come to an end so that they could all live peacefully. Reports of this deeply intrigued Urukwazas. These should just be control units, but they had gained some kind of sentience, so they had the Gen X controller sent back to their lab for further study, and a miraculous thing had been discovered. Much like how the controllers were exerting an influence on the Gen X to enhance their combat efficiency, it seemed that the Gen X had also extended influence right back, as the physical makeup of the controller now matched that of the Gen X, effectively making it one of them. As days went on, new Gen X controllers would seemingly appear from the Earth itself, no longer needing to be manufactured. And even without their help, new models of Gen X came forward with combat capabilities all their own. It was worrying that the Gen X were adapting in the way the worms might, taking adversity and molding themselves to meet the challenges ahead. But after some thought, Urukwazas came to the conclusion that this was different than parasites learning how to best drain their prey, but an immune system updating to fight off an infection.
Why would they do that? It's so bad.
It was clear that some alternative weapon needed to be made to combat the worms. Without the special laser weapon that required the Mist Valley to manufacture, their enemy had little to fear, having long since adapted to resist their more conventional weaponry. So Urukwazas dedicated themselves to finding a solution, and their new, extra-dimensional friends would be just the key. While the Fabled were reluctant to divulge any information about their magical techniques, or any of their advantages for that matter, the leader of the Flamvell had a keen sense for observation, and the gadgets to record anything they couldn't perceive. While this didn't grant them mastery of the Fabled's particular kind of magic, they could see its effects on the real world, generating energy by emulating the fusion of atoms, which could then be molded to the whims of the caster. But Urukwazas would not settle for making a simple copy. After several weeks of research and development, they had created the machines that could actually fuse atoms, and thus, the real fusion reactors were born. And while the new invention was meant to supplement the Allies of Justice, Urukwazas had an idea at the last minute. They instead integrated the real fusion reactors into the Gen X, whose mechanical components took to it quite quickly, amplifying their power greatly. And within a few weeks, Urukwazas' hypothesis was proven correct. New Gen X began to spring forth, each with their own real fusion reactor, ready-made. Whatever force was producing the Gen X saw this new addition as an integral advancement, and thus, the R-Gen X were born. It was a strange sight to see these new beings amongst the ranks of the Mist Valley, and the Thunderlord feared for the worst. What abominable experiments had the furnace blasted scientists done to these poor creatures now? But there was little time to investigate. While they had distanced themselves from justice, the residents of Mist Valley still welcomed the Gen X to fight alongside them, and they needed all the help they could get. Their most powerful line of defense, a creature known as the Mistworm, no relation to the invading forces, had been defeated, and without the obscuring vapors emanating from its form, there was little chance of a successful counterattack. But it was at that moment that a new force arrived, from deep within the Mist Valley itself, a place that no resident dare tread, for not only was it very, very far away, but incredibly sacred, the Dragon Ravine. For within its stone cliffs was a tribe that had taken the Mist Valley technique of reading the wind, the art of using one's breathing to communicate with the natural world, to its very limit. Dragon mastery. In fact, the Dragon Ravine had been avoided for so long, it was thought that its supposed inhabitants, the Dragoonity, were but a myth. Some of these tales even claim that the oldest and strongest of the Dragoonity fought against the great ice dragon Trishula itself, resisting the world-ending cold it wielded until its icy prison could be constructed. But the reason they faded into legend was that they had little stake in the wars that raged around them. To both keep their technique secret and to hone it, they sequestered themselves deep inside Mist Valley, but the plight of the world carried easily upon the wind, and once it reached the Dragon Ravine, the Knights of Dragons knew it was their duty to intervene. By harmonizing their hearts with their dragon companions, they grew substantially in both size and power, and with it, the invading worms stood little chance. It was a rout, and for the first time in a long time, the Mist Valley was finally free of the worms. And this was not the only place to see such success. Despite the loss of Field Marshal, it was one step back among a sea of triumphs. The Fabled dispatched the worms with glee and ferocity, the invaders unable to properly adapt to their magic, and what was even worse for them, while their mind magic wasn't quite as effective against individual worms, it was incredibly effective at disrupting their mental link with the Worm King's hive mind control, disorienting armies that would have otherwise been formidable threats. The new armor of the Double X Sabers proved to be just the jumpstart they needed, cleaving through worm hide with weapons still faintly enchanted with Mist Valley lightning magic. Gungnir was a force to be reckoned with by both sides. The Gen X had become stronger than they'd ever been, the Dragoonity's draconic tactics and weapons were beyond comprehension, and even the Ally of Justice machines had some new, powerful additions to fight back against their invaders, which would soon be topped off by the crown jewel of Aruquazas's creation. Every day, the worms were pushed back over and over again, and a stunning realization had occurred. The worms had reached their limit. Their ability to evolve and adapt had simply stopped. Either the functions they used to complete such a task were no longer working, or they simply didn't have the capability to adapt to all this anymore. But whatever the truth may be, the invaders were failing, a fact that was violently punctuated by the destruction of the Worm Queen, their forces having finally been surrounded by the great defenders of the Naturia Forest and the forces of justice. It was cause for celebration, as half the Worm army simply ceased to exist, no longer having a controlling influence to keep them stable. But for all the bliss and joviality of victory, the bitter taste of defeat was inescapable for another. Despite their distance, the Worm King could still feel the life force of the Queen being torn asunder, leaving a hole in a heart they didn't even know they had. But despite having no experience with emotions, that heart wouldn't remain empty for long. The Fabled sensed the stirrings of emotion within the alien Titan, and saw this as their golden opportunity to seize control. Either the king would be crushed under the weight of their feelings, or it would trigger some monumental change. And as it turned out, it was the latter. Grief, loneliness, rage, guilt, a maelstrom of negative emotions swirled inside, and in the depths of their regret, the Worm King tapped into something deep within their genetic code, a power that was only meant to be used when it was time to move on to another planet, to cap off the invasion of one world and start the infestation of the next, the power to warp space, the Zero Gene. The king harnessed that power and howled their pain and anguish into the void, hoping something, anything, would answer.
They did what?
It did. For the worms do not forget their kin, even if separated by light years and millennia. A small moon that had been conquered long ago answered the call, and above the skies of the Jurak—
I'm sorry. They were like, man, I'm so mad my wife is dead that they ripped a hole through space and time. He was like, oh man, fuck, my wife's dead. Ooh, and then she just said, fuck the world, and it was like ripped
Badlands, this moon-sized massive worms began to push through the dimensional portal and deal the finishing blow to their enemies.
What?
The Flamvel moved to intercept this dimensional rift, but anything that got close to it was annihilated. The enormous entity, dubbed Worm Zero, lashed out with massive tendrils, and anything they met was crushed and absorbed. Worm Zero also unleashed cascades of the mercury gray ooze that was their base form, the inert worm cells of the engulfed moon beginning to reawaken and take shape, learning from the genetic memory of Worm King. Any force that could somehow manage to avoid the tendrils were quickly swept away by a worm army that had suddenly materialized out of thin air, and it wouldn't be long before Worm Zero was able to break through the portal, and who knows what would happen if it landed on Terminus. The W Nebula meteorite was destructive enough, but a whole moon would spell the end of all life on the planet. Not even the worms might survive the catastrophic impact, but in the face of irrational anger, consequences were irrelevant. And yet, despite everything, the Fabled still grinned from ear to ear. If worst came to worst, they could always just retreat back to their own little realm and wait things out. But the worms had given them just the excuse they needed to fulfill their true aims. Ragin, Valkyrus, and Leviathan came before the Council of Justice and offered a solution. Before they had been sealed away, the Fable did have a number of cities on the surface that had been, over time, sealed underground. And as it so happened, the portal was right over one of their ancient cities. Using their immense power, along with some help from the real fusion reactors the Argenix had, this city could be raised, providing some kind of defense against Worm Zero's attacks, perhaps even providing enough cover to move Justice's new ace in the hole into position. Once again, Justice had little reason to disagree, and allowed the Fable to tap into the Argenix to obtain the power necessary for the ritual that would raise the fabled city. And by all accounts, it was a success. Skyscrapers erupted from the ground, destroying its fair share of worms in the process. And when Worm Zero went to retaliate, it found that the buildings were magically reinforced, too strong even for the likes of this invading planetoid. Justice wasted no time. With the Rayquazas's masterpiece completed, a Gen X controller was plugged in to allow the ally mind, the last vestiges of Cataster, to pilot it remotely. It sped across Terminus at breakneck speed, and any worms that were encountered along the way were taken care of by the allied forces. The Double X Sabers, Ice Barrier Shock Troopers, the Gen X, and even the Dragoonides, who had not sworn off contact with Justice as Mist Valley had, cleared the way for the Flamvel and the final weapon to win this decisive battle. Ally of Justice, Decisive Armor. It darted between the buildings of the fabled city, blasting any worms that appeared in its way. And as it scaled the tallest building, it happened. Worm Zero broke through, the mass of dead worms threatening to consume and destroy the entire planet. Worm King was sought out, and the tendrils reached out and plucked it from the city, absorbing all the hate and despair within. The displacement caused by the large moon suddenly appearing in the atmosphere caused hurricane wind forces to buffet the city, something Decisive Armor had to contend with, along with the tendril strikes from Worm Zero. But within moments, the final weapon of the Allies of Justice was within firing range, and in a single barrage of brilliant light, energy that had been pioneered by Mist Valley and copied by the real fusion reactor, pierced through Worm Zero, the herald of destruction for the entire planet, and in moments, the pain of Terminus, as well as the suffering of the Worm King, vanished. The invasion was stopped. The worms were gone. It is possible that other worms still existed out there, somewhere in the void of space, but as far as the citizens of Terminus were concerned, they had won. The battle was over. But this was not a sentiment shared by the Fabled.
We have arisen victorious against these vile invaders. I shudder to think what would have happened if they won.
This is
but
so
we
much.
have no need to worry about that any longer. For now that trifling matter has concluded, you can now all bow to your new ruler.
World.
All hail me, fabled Leviathan, Lord God of Terminus.
Thank you all so much for listening to my interpretation of—
I'm sorry, I'm having so much whiplash of the sheer idea of this worm being so mad that, like, he ripped a hole through space and time, and then just a big wet dookie came out from that hole and, like, started dripping goo, like, everywhere. And, like, the Allies of Justice's response was to, like, build just a bunch of skyscrapers and then fight them along with the skyscrapers. What? Oh, it's not? Sorry, I think I was just leaned back so far. But, like, he gooed and then he fired, like, a giant laser on it. And then they found skyscrapers. Even better, they just found them. How does this, what? Oh my god! He formed over.
In a world both very far and very near to us all, a tale of grand import is unfolding.
This is like so
much. A tale
much.
Where adventure lies just over the horizon, where good and evil do battle to determine the fate of the world, and where all is not what it may appear to be.
This
Hello,
is just
everyone.
like so much.
Golden Nova here, and today it's time to continue the chronicles of a tale that is still being told about never-changing
Wait, is this
land.
the last episode?
Sit back, relax, and listen as I tell you all about
I think this is the last
history
episode
of the Duel Terminal. Part 4.
That's what I'm saying.
Invasion
This is the last
from
episode.
below. After the defeat
that
of Worm
Golden Nova
Zero,
has.
the final weapon in the alien invaders' arsenal.
No, I know there's
well.
more.
The
I know
tribes,
there's more.
having united against a
I'm saying
common
this is the
enemy
last that
and
Golden Nova
mostly
has.
moving past
That's
their
what I'm
historical
saying.
conflicts, meant that the many people of Terminus could live in peace. And most of all, the generals of the Ice Barrier could finally put an end to the clerical faction's
I'll have to go through his
insistence on
channel and
releasing
check,
the
but I
Ice
think
Dragons.
that's all that he has
Without their
left.
interference, the generals could go back to being the sole authority in the land of Palakti. But it appeared that fate had other plans.
Y'all want to find
Before there
another
was
piece
even
of
time
lore to
rally a
watch if this
victory
is the last
cry,
of it?
Fabled Valkyrus, previously an uneasy ally of justice, proclaimed that it was now time for the mortal races to pay their dues. For the Fabled's assistance in driving away the extraterrestrial threat, it was only natural for the many tribes of the world to bend a knee to those who had secured their safety. The forces of justice were blindsided by this request, their surprise mixing with a deep sense of shame. Honestly, they should have known better. Strangers showing up at their doorstep, ready to help at their time of most need. How could it not have been a trap?
I feel like World
If the tribes had just remained cautious, held to their old divisive tactics, this might not have happened. But they never would have gotten as far as they did against the worms if they had not learned how to.
Let me pause. I think only 3 episodes. We can do that then. We can do Vita's lore. I want to wait for Albaz to be finished. I think he says that I finish Albaz this month. I think. Hey, yo, is that a super chat? Thank you.
I love that part where Worm King was like, I'm gonna worm, and then wormed everywhere.
Yeah. So is World Legacy's 5 episodes, or is Visa's 5 episodes? Did you finish? No, this is the last episode. So Visa's 5 episodes. I'll see how long they are. I know it's not done yet. Don't worry. I didn't plan for it to be done. But it's so long since I watched it. I'll have to see. After this, okay, we'll look after this and see which one is longer, World Legacy or Visa's. So I want to watch more lore. I didn't realize, I thought it was going to be longer.
Trust. That risk of vulnerability is what ultimately gave them the strength to fight back when nothing else worked. Unity was the only solution.
That's what,
and if it worked
like
against
Albaz
the
one, it
worms,
shouldn't be too long.
it could work against the Fabled. The tribe stood in defiance of Valkyrus's proclamation, disappointing one of the Fabled kings, but elating another. Raijin, the more aggressively minded of the 2 Fabled warlords to come to Terminus, immediately gave the order to slaughter. The fiendish troops were already firmly entrenched in Justice's forces, and since they'd only spent energy from the Gen X's real fusion reactors to fight Worm Zero, they had all their natural reserves of magic ready for battle. Justice, on the other hand, was haggard and depleted, having spent every ounce of their strength just helping Decisive Armor get into position to deal the finishing blow. It was a rout. Warriors, spellcasters, beasts, dragons, dinosaurs, all scattered in every direction as the fiends began their gruesome work. Even the mighty Decisive Armor was doomed. It was built to defeat enemies of enormous size, but when faced with the Fabled, their weapons and tactics were of little effectiveness. Despite the Fabled and the Worms having a strangely similar, though not exact energy signature, their giant cannons just couldn't be positioned in time to hit their targets. Raijin took great pleasure in disassembling Justice's latest symbol of strength, touting its broken husk as a trophy of their conquest.
Damn.
From that point forward, the mass of buildings that was once the world's last bastion against its invaders became the seat of power for its new oppressors. Broken, battered, but not completely beaten, Justice retreated, frantically discussing their next move. While they had kept the Fabled at arm's reach, much like they had done to Justice, the Fabled's ability to read minds and amplify negative emotions meant that they could launch an attack in a way the Worms never could. Their knowledge of the organization was great, and the right soldiers and officials succumbing to fear and hate at the wrong time could cause Justice to collapse from the inside. Something had to be done.
How could it get
worse? It had to be done now. The Dragoonity, who weren't officially part of Justice but were more than glad to lend their support,
Yeah, the
suggested
besties.
that if teamwork
besties.
was how they wanted to seize the day, then it would be prudent to have the entire team, and that they should head to the Mist Valley.
Oh.
Gottoms, Arukwazos, and Grunard agreed, though for different reasons.
Elon
the
always
Ice Barrier
finds a
General
way.
pointed out that, having not participated in the battle against Worm Zero, the Mist Valley were actually the most rested and supplied of any force on Terminus. Arukwazos mentioned that they'd need their magical prowess more than ever if they were going to stand up against the new brand of sorcery the Fabled were capable of. And Gottoms knew that, on top of all these material truths, there was an emotional one as well. A bridge had been burned, and while he didn't light the match or spark the fire, his decisions and negligence led to the conditions that made that bridge susceptible to the fires of hate and paranoia.
So
and
true,
he intended
bestie.
to do whatever was necessary
So
to
true,
rebuild it.
bestie.
I've heard tell that the Fabled finally showed their treacherous color.
Gotta go kiss your boyfriend.
We're doing very badly.
Oh my god.
So you come crawling
They're
back
gonna
to
reconcile!
us now
They're
that
gonna
your
get back
divine
together!
benefactors have called you to heal.
I do not deny that this is the truth of things.
My god,
For
they're
good
gonna
or
kiss and
ill,
make
we come to you
up!
now, after you've suffered indignity at my hands.
Yeah! Apologize!
Sorry.
I have a confession as well.
Oh!
The voice that told me of your schemes, it claimed to be a constellar, but has since fallen silent since the Fabled arrived. Considering the trickery I know them capable of, I feel that I was just as much a puppet as you.
Oh!
I understand that they
The
inflamed the
confession!
insecurities and prejudices we all held, but they could not have done so if those conceptions did not exist in the first place.
No, that's not true. I would never.
Gottoms?
Go!
I know this
He got him! Got him!
because they did the same to me. They preyed on the image of you all I had in my head, and I
So when
let the
did they
fables
kiss?
take hold and make them seem more real than the people standing in front of
Kiss,
them.
kiss, kiss,
But
kiss,
those
kiss, kiss,
impulses
kiss,
came
kiss,
from
kiss.
inside. Hiding them makes them fester and grow. Perfect fodder for the fables.
Twitter officially reached them!
We need to acknowledge these truths before we can possibly stand against them.
What would you have me do?
Show me your true self. Lower your guard and share the air that dwells
I think it's
within
so
your
funny knowing
lungs,
this is
so
probably
that I
just
might
Golden
sense
Nova
your
voicing
spirit.
different people, so we're just yelling at Golden Nova to kiss himself!
I sense
He's gonna react to his Twitter account!
regret, pride,
They're gonna do their Omegle dates again!
dismissal. You think this is a pointless exercise?
I can't help but feel that I could just tell you what's on my mind, as one figure of character to another. But
But
it is true.
Is Golden Nova
These thoughts
fanfiction?
cloud my every
Are
judgment.
they
whether I
kissing?
see
No,
it or
we're
not.
getting there!
You
They're
have
like close up, they're like face to
clearly
face, they're
shown
like a
how
centimeter
insightful
apart!
reading the wind can be. And so, I would fight
They're
100
about to be
battles
together.
for but a single day in which I could spend understanding you all more than to die in ignorance while wallowing in self-importance.
No voice
under
every character in the
boot
series
of
except for
the
chapter 1. What? Naruhodo.
it appears Arukwazos is eager to test their latest hypothesis.
Then you'll come with us?
You will need a strong companion at your back if you are to fight 100 battles. I join you reluctantly.
Let's go!
in hopes that I shall one day join you.
The newly reformed Justice began formulating their counterattack. The anti-worm weapons of the ally of Justice machines did show to have some level of effectiveness on the Fabled, but their lack of enchantment kept them from being fully damaged by them. However, the real fusion reactors that Arukwazos had made, and subsequently adopted by the R-Gen-X, was made to emulate the Fabled's power. If the two could be combined, they might have the capabilities to hold their ground against the fiends. Grisham was, once again, confronted with the fact that these creatures, who had shown up to assist them at their hour of greatest need, were being treated as weapons on a rack to be outfitted to fight some new kind of prey, not as emissaries of the Earth. It felt sacrilegious, a disrespect towards the cycle of nature itself. But As the Thunder Lord observed Urukwazas explain this plan to
They
the Gen
don't
X
kiss?
controllers, who had now
feel like
become
we
the
got a little
closest
kiss in
thing to
there.
an ambassador for that tribe, Grisham saw no coercion.
Albaz got
Urukwazas
another
simply
true love story.
stated his
Oi,
case,
oi, oi!
and the Gen X
You
began
can't do that to
salvaging
my
broken
boy
ally
Albaz
of Justice
Ecclesia.
machines and began haphazardly applying their armor and weapons onto themselves, eager to help the planet however they could. However, despite their natural intuition, the Gen X were no engineers,
Can't you do
and
friends?
so each
They
tribe took
can
the
be.
ally of
That's
Justice
not what
machines
we're
they
saying.
specialized in, and
However,
began working to improve
they're
any
boyfriends.
Gen X that would volunteer. It harkened back to the old
In our
days
head
of
canon, they
Justice,
kiss
where
so
each tribe would share
besties.
resources, but largely built their devices in solitude. But now, with a renewed sense of unity,
They're
each
just
group of
teammates.
scientists
They're
shared
just
their knowledge freely,
roommates.
enhancing their designs, while a fresh pair of eyes were on hand to point out overlooked
Wait, they're so
flaws.
cute.
This resulted in a massive overall spike in quality, and eventually, like the real fusion reactor before it, Gen X began appearing with these modifications entirely without prompting, as if the spirit of
They're
permanence
so
itself had approved the best
cute.
designs. And like the generation before them, they would need their
You will
own
still
name,
say they're
the
just
Gen X
roommates.
Allies.
Yeah!
These efforts culminated in two of the most powerful Gen X to date, the Tri-Twins. Tri-Arm was built by combining the efforts of the Mist Valley and Palakti. Both tribes specialized in long-range combat and outfitted this Gen X with a threefold functioning weapon that could cause the mental
Oh,
magic
Birdman's
of the Fable
good?
to
I see.
backfire, stunning them with a feedback loop, destroy their spells and enchantments, and could even break down the Fabled in a single shot, rendering their essence into magical-based components for Tri-Arm to absorb. Triforce, on the other hand, was created through a joint effort of the Double X Sabers and the Flamvel. Both of these tribes were focused on engaging the enemy in close combat, but on top of that, had heavy influence from the worm biology that Urukwazas was researching. Its threefold weapon could keep the Fabled it was fighting against from casting spells to prevent retaliation, caused those it defeated to violently explode, damaging surrounding units,
What's
and perhaps
Birdman's
the most
effect?
miraculous and disturbing of them all, could revive those that had an energy signature similar to the worms, using a signal that was similar to the worm hive mind, reanimating dead cells and putting it under Triforce's control. These phantom
He looks like
worms,
a hero.
who
I
had
will
seeped
say that. He
into
looks
the
like a mass
ground after
hero.
death, were an abundant source of backup for Triforce.
He bounces?
And
Oh, I
any Fable
see.
that fell in battle could share a similar fate. Grisham was thankful they weren't part of that team and did their best to understand the utility of this weapon, though would
It
be
bounces
more
also
than
in
happy to
Monster
see it
Double
sealed away forever
I
once its
see.
usefulness had run its course.
Naruto.
However, while the tribes of justice were
Like an
improving the
extra
Gen
hero?
X
True. I
and
can
slowly
see that.
advancing towards the fabled city, there was one tribe that did not have the luxury of retreat: the Jurak. The dinosaurs of the primordial
what?
flame were being hunted down in a cruel reversal of fate. Once, they had been the
Oh, and it's a
apex predators
tuner.
that
I
roamed this
see.
land. Now, they were hunted for sport, if not being exterminated en masse, being treated as pests to be cleared out of the Fabled's new home. And while the Jurak fought valiantly, without the assistance of other tribes, their numbers swiftly began to dwindle. This indignity not only impacted their numbers, but their flames as well. The gouts of fire that once plumed so brilliantly from these dinosaurs mere months before
Wait.
began to smolder, some of them going out completely, falling without ever seeing the heat of battle for how heartbroken they were. Their land, once a nest for their hunting and dominance, was taken from them.
You
And
hate
having
to
seen
see
far
it.
too many lose their lives to these invaders, one of the Jurak leaders had had enough.
No.
Titano, the strongest and most honored of the Juraks, fueled his fire not with the nobility of the hunt, but the rage and sadness that came from being on the edge of extinction.
Oh, sevens
and
and
so
my
he
chat
would point that
boys.
very
Oh,
fate back
sevens
at
in the
those who would
chat
inflict it
boys.
on them, even if it meant destroying themselves in the process. In the heart of the Jurak Badlands was a volcano that seethed with fire and brimstone, constantly churning with molten magma.
Not the
An old
boy.
apocalyptic tale
Not
passed
the
down from the
boy.
elders said that a meteor once crashed in this land, killing the old inhabitants of it. And where it landed, this volcano was left, and from its caldera, the Jurak themselves were born. And one day, that meteor was destined to erupt from this volcano to one
You
day
hate to
spread its
see
malice to another world, continuing the cycle. But Titano
So
was not
sad.
content to wait for this prophecy to come to bear, nor were they content to let some other world experience its cleansing fire. If anyone deserved its wrath, it was the Fabled. And so, with fatalistic determination, Titano rallied those Jurax who would see themselves go out in a blaze of glory rather than be smothered by the Fabled, and marched them to this volcano, seeking to end things once and for all. It was around this time that the Gen X allies had beaten back many of the Fabled forces, and thus were on the doorstep of the Jurak Badlands. While the Fabled had used their mind magic to disrupt the hive mind of the worms, the hive mind of the Gen X was less susceptible to this assault. Not only were the technological communications of the Gen X controllers more resilient to those magics, the Gen X hive mind was less about asserting control and more about sharing information. So even if their mental connections were disrupted, it had little short-term effect on their combat capabilities. However, many of the allies of justice, especially those who hailed from the ice barrier, were not equipped to go any further, especially since the presence of the worms in the area had subsided, which, if nothing else, had cooled several sections of the Badlands, allowing the other tribes to traverse it. While preparations were being made to help with this, Arukwazas took the Flamvel to scout ahead, hoping to provide some relief for the Jurax. However, it wasn't long before they discovered a group of Jurax not so consumed with hate. While the Jurak were nowhere near as advanced as many of the other tribes on Terminus, they were far from mindless beasts, and with some work, Arukwazas was able to understand them, and was told of what Titano planned to do. Which was, per Arukwazas' calculations, the worst possible outcome. Justice had worked so hard to prevent Worm Zero from smashing into their world, and if left unchecked, this meteor could have similar, if not worse, effects. But Arukwazas was nothing if not resourceful. Telling his subordinates to retrieve a particularly sensitive piece of research material, the leader of the Flamvel made their way to the volcano that Titano sought to violently awaken. When he arrived, the ritual had already begun. Titano was subsumed by the volcano's magma and was not only storing its heat and energy within themselves, but was directing it deeper into the volcano, looking to trigger a massive eruption that would lift the volcano into space before causing it to smash into the fabled city. But the...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're saying that a volcano is going to store so much heat and gas that it's going to lift itself off the ground to fall back down and act like a meteor. What? Hold on. I take off my physical person glasses right now to just like... What? I I don't know how to respond to this. Like, do the people at Konami who write the lore understand that the volcanoes don't work like that? Does Konami know that is not how volcanoes work? Tidal volcanoes do?
This ritual had not gone unnoticed. All that energy drew the attention of the Fabled in the area, and when reported that such energy could have dangerous repercussions if left to its own completion, Raijin and Valkyris ordered legions of troops to quell the ritual. This, however, was the perfect leverage Arukwazas was looking for. While the Jurax and the Flamvel forces defended the volcano with all their might, it would not last much longer. And triggering an eruption of the power Titano was looking for would take far longer than they had time to accomplish. And so, an alternative was put forth. Arukwazas offered a vessel that Titano could use, one that could withstand the massive heat of the volcano and had proven to survive atmospheric re-entry, while needing less total energy to launch and would have more directed force. It was the research material that Arukwazas had requested, the W Nebula meteorite. And Titano, seeing the situation around them and not wanting their companion's death to be in vain, agreed. Entering the meteorite, the magma molded and formed a shell around Titano, and with the energy that was already stored up, was enough to complete the ritual.
What?
The last noise the Jurak heard was a loud, deafening roar as a pillar
He's
of
in
lava
space?
launched Titano beyond the clouds.
Arukwazas, do you hear me?
Hey, I didn't know these
What?
radios would work after the blast.
He
How's
lifted
it going,
himself
you
in
old war
his...
dog?
Are you
What?
responsible for that? We just saw a huge pillar of fire. Are you hurt?
A bit, but not for much longer.
No.
I imagine I reduced the blast radius quite a bit from what was intended, but I'd still recommend getting out of the Jurak Badlands.
No! I'm sorry! He like... First off, it's a Skype call. Hilarious. Second, he like merged himself with like... This dinosaur merged himself... He merged himself with the meteorite. And then they lifted himself into space. Oh my god, that was so funny. Oh my god. Oh, okay.
Up was enough to complete
Okay, I
the
feel
ritual.
better now.
The last
I
noise
needed
the
a second.
Jurak heard was a loud, deafening roar as a pillar of lava launched Titano.
Oh my god, I
beyond
can't
the
laugh
clouds.
anymore. But his legs are so small.
Arukwazas, do you hear me?
Hey,
yo,
I
is that
didn't
a
know
super
these
jet?
radios would work after
Breaking
the
news.
blast.
Heckin'
How's
Jack
it
is
going,
so
you
angry he
old war
leaves the
dog?
earth.
Are you responsible for that? We just saw a huge pillar of fire. Are you hurt?
A bit, but not for much
Oh my
longer.
god.
I imagine I reduced the blast radius
Oh my
quite a bit from what
God.
it was intended,
That
but
was so funny.
I'd still recommend getting out of the Jurak
That was
Badlands.
so funny.
In fact, you might want to get out of the sulfur fields too, just in case. I was doing some real bar napkin math near the end there.
What's your location? I can send some troops and escort you out.
Not likely. Even if we left now, I'm not sure we'd be able to escape the impact. And that's even if we weren't surrounded.
Wait, is he gonna
Then
die?
we'll go on the offensive. We can break through and...
Don't bother. This should clean the Fabled's clock for good.
Is he gonna die?
For us to go through all this and end up wiping all of us out. Get everybody home safe and sound, Gothams. You'll learn this.
That is unacceptable. I'm not leaving a comrade behind. What's your...
Oh, and if you run into Gantala, you let that bald bastard know that he's still...
Gonna die? Oh my god! Oh my god!
The effects of the impact were unexpected. The Jurak were now thoroughly extinct. A lucky few of the Fabled were able to survive the blast with their potent magic, but it was the Flamvel who saw the strangest outcome. While the cleansing flame was absolute, the bodies left behind by the Warriors of Fire were not snuffed out, but rekindled, reborn as a new species, carrying the primordial flame of both the Flamvel and the Jurak. It was said that the Meteor of Malice had given birth to the Jurak, and now it appears the same was true for the Neo Flamvel. And those Fabled who did survive were in for a nasty surprise, as along with the Neo Flamvel, an ancient entity began to stir. A deific statue that, once unearthed by the blast, was revived by the Neo Flamvel, their fervent prayers awakening it. They were drawn to this deity, as if possessing the same charisma and intellect as a leader of fire they once knew, along with a ferocity that could only have come from a leader among the dinosaurs. And its unparalleled power began to burn away the Fabled that were left in the lands of fire. And so the fiends never did lay a hand on the world of flames ever again. But despite the impact, despite the Flamvel deity, and despite the lack of organization, the Fabled still posed a massive threat, not to the Jurak Badlands, but to the rest of Terminus. Raijin and Valkyris had both perished, each sought to betray the other, seeing an opportunity to seize all the Fabled forces for themselves alone. By using paralysis magics, their rival would be caught within the impact zone, and as it turned out, both of their plans worked out a little too well. And so, their underlings were left to their own devices. In search of carnage and chaos, the Fabled scattered to the four winds, harrowing every tribe. They weren't interested in large-scale combat either, so they terrorized villages and...
Is that a Holt to Brazil? Is that the Holt?
Towns, raising as much hell as they could manage, and would fly away at the first sign of organized resistance. Not even the Gen X, who could be found anywhere, were able to stop them, because despite how widespread they were spread very thin, and by the time enough of them came together to fight back, all that was left was ruin. But the tribe that was hurt most by this was the Ice Barrier. The border fortresses that used to surround the capital of the blocky tundra had been devastated by the Worm invaders and had yet to be repaired, not to mention that their standing army had been deployed beyond their borders to help defeat the fiends. So when the Fabled came to ravage their lands unaffected by the harsh temperatures, there was little that could stop them. Brainiac and Gungnir had stayed home after the campaigns against the Worms, and while their breath weapons were more than enough to slay the Fabled, they were so widespread it was impossible to catch them all, especially once they reached the population centers. To the clerical faction, this was the last straw. Using their own strength didn't work, relying on the other tribes didn't work, even trying to contact otherworldly forces hadn't worked. There was only one course of action remaining. The Ice Barrier medium, leading the clerical faction, once again seized the mirror of the Ice Barrier without the general's permission and began the process of unsealing the final dragon. Returning all too late, the generals begged the clerics to cease this madness, for Trishula's ice would kill them all. But the clerics continued their work, saying it would be their divine punishment for even thinking of consorting with demons. One of their own had already been killed for attempting to do much the same, and the medium took this as a sign. They must all be frozen in ice for their transgressions, as an example for any future generations that might survive.
Let him out!
The moment the seal was broken, ice began to coat the entire capital, though thicker and colder than it ever had been before. People froze where they stood, and the sun itself was blotted out by a great blizzard, as Trishula, the final dragon of the Ice Barrier, was unleashed. At its call, both Brainiac and Gungnir broke from the control of the Ice Barrier mirror, and no amount of force channeled through the artifact was enough to command the three-headed tyrant. This primal force of frost and snow continued to strengthen this blizzard, and no one could stop it. The double X Sabers armor locked up, and their metal suits became standing coffins. The Mist Valley was already very susceptible to the cold because of their high altitude, and as the feathers of their flyers froze, they fell to the ground. Even the newly awakened primordial flame of the Neo Flamvel wasn't enough to fight back, having only enough warmth to keep them from being frozen to death. Within days, all the regions of the world we've touched on had been frozen in a giant sheet of ice. The only lands left untouched were the deepest parts of the Naturia forest, as well as what lay beyond the Mist Valley. The Dragoonity retreated deep into the canyons of their Dragon Ravine, but if this was effective enough to outlast the cold, none can say, as they haven't been seen since. The only reprieve from this bitter cold was a waking spirit, who saw the 3 dragons of the ice barrier had once again been set free. This spirit, the prior of the ice barrier, the one who constructed the cage the 3 dragons were meant to stay in forever, and who made the mirror to contain them, looked on in disappointment. All this work,
I love when my cousin kills people. Let's go! Commit crimes! Commit crimes!
But there were lands beyond here that could yet be saved, and while it would cost the spirit the last of its energy, it would do so. As a final gift to the land of Terminus, they resealed the 3 ice dragons, and with the spirit gone and the dragons sealed, there were no more fabled, no more worms, no more double X Sabers, no more Neo Flamvel,
the boyfriends are dead!
More Jirac, no more Gen X, no more Mist Valley, no more Ignium Sulfur Fields, or Jirac Badlands, or Everblade Mountain Ranges. There was only the Ice Barrier. And silence.
No, the boyfriends are dead!
But all was not lost.
So
one member of the Ice Barrier, stricken by grief at the loss of a dear friend, fled with that friend's child to find a place far from the ravages of war. They walked across Terminus and braved the Mist Valley, all the while meeting and adopting other children who were made orphans by the ruthless fighting. After a long and arduous journey, this priestess of the Ice Barrier arrived at the other side of the Mist Valley, in a rich marshland, and was taken in by another tribe, the Gusto. For many years, this priestess and their adopted children would live in peace, with the reminder of the world they left behind always on the horizon. A stark sheet of glassy ice covering the canyon that used to lead into the Mist Valley. But the world of Terminus is a world of cycles, and while war has given way to peace, it is only a matter of time before the cycle begins anew.
Oh shit. Sophia's waiting? Who?
Thank you all so much for watching part 4 of the history of the Duel Terminal.
Oh my god. What? What? Oh my god. Nova, make more! Nova, please make more! Okay. Let me... Hold on. Let's see.
Hello, everyone.
Check for season 2. Let me see. What? That's 4. We just watched 4. Yeah, that's all he has. Let me see. What else? That's Albaz. Duel Terminal, Albaz. Albaz. Huh. Post credit scene at
There's
the
a
end. Is there
continent
really?
isolated from the
Hello,
rest
everyone.
of the world.
Oh my god,
Golden
there's
Nova
too
here.
many videos! Stop!
There's a continent isolated from the... In a world...
Okay, there's a post credit scene? Is there? Oh my god, there is! There is! There is! There is! Hold on. Okay.
Bye-bye. Well, that went off the rails fairly quickly.
Oh.
I was hoping that those two
Hey,
idiots
yo, is that
would
a
leave me
super chat?
something before they bit the
Nelia
dust.
is the Karen who
Especially
didn't wear her
considering all the
mask during
energy I
early
put into opening up the
2020.
dimensional
Oh my
doorway, providing troops, etc., etc. But what's a few more millennia, right? That ice has got to thaw eventually. In the meantime, I've got my throne room, I've got loyal servants, and all the... Who dares approach the throne of your almighty god? Mitsoji sends her regards, God King. Now, what am I gonna do with the throne for the next 1,000 years? Decisions.
Oh my god, it's so good! Oh my god. There's a new one! Oh my god, oh my god! Ah, it's so good! Elon got murdered! Oh my god. Was that Jeff Bezos? Oh my god! He's so good at this. He's so good at this. I'm trying to see what else can we watch? What else can we watch? World Star Hip Hop. I'm trying to see what we can watch. This is all like how to play decks, but like I'm trying to find lore. I'm trying to find Golden Nova lore. Visas? Let me find one. Let me find the start of visas. Where are you? Vsauce, where are you? Ooh, where are you? Vsauce. This is all like actual TCG. I don't want to learn to play the game. I hate reading. Welcome to membership, bestie. Remember, book of 5 minutes to check in. Thanks for 8 trillion nights. Aw, bestie. Aw, sheesh. Let me just search up Golden Nova Visa. It's 5. Gear Claw Lord, 16 minutes. World Chalice. I'm trying to find... He has a playlist? Okay, wait. So that's Albaz. Dual Terminal. Albaz. Dual Terminal. Albaz. Yeah, and then he goes to Visa's Lore Part 4. Where's Part 1? Where's Part 1? Visa's Lore. Hey, yo, is that a super chat?
This series gives me vibes like if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device.
Yeah, I was looking at the playlist, but it only had, for some reason, Part 4 in there. Oh, he has it under Scareclaw? Okay, wait. Why did he change the tiling convention? Keep it this game, please, sir. Scareclaw. Scareclaw explains 16 minutes. I guess it's this. Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Tech cards. Intro. Buy Asbot. It's just him explaining the cards. There's no, like, lore section. It's just, okay, go over traps, tech cards, outro. Yeah, it doesn't... This is literally just explaining the cards. Okay? Here's Kashtira and lore, okay. So I guess it would be in this one? Tier limits, Kashtira cards, lore! 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 Lore.
With all their cards out of the way, normally we'd move on to tech picks, but for this theme, I'd like to take a little extra time to talk about the lore and what's going on here. First, a bit of an addendum. Last time, when talking about Tiara Laments, I was under the assumption that Kaleido Heart was under the control of one of the Tiara Laments, probably a member of the ruling elite. This somber figure behind Kaleido Heart in their art was my primary reasoning, with the art for Crime possibly showing a stricter form of control.
Wait! Tier Laments and, like... Wait. Scareclaw and, like, Tier Laments, they're, like, holding hands? I see. Okay, hold on. They hold hands. Naruhodo.
Hello, everyone.
It's just hard to scrub through all this because, like, the way he has this one set up is that... Oh yeah, link in the description.
So, what's the deal with Scareclaws? Well, we actually have a few different classifications for them. We have a group of level 3 Earth Beasts that act as
just him
material
going over
and
cards.
support,
I'm sure
a
he
pair of
does
warrior
sprinkle
monsters
it
who are
occasionally,
also
but,
kind of
like,
support, and a
it's
big
not,
Link
like,
3 that's the cornerstone of
doesn't
the
work the
entire
same,
strategy
you know?
that everything revolves around. In
Valence
fact,
was
let's
connected
reverse
too?
our
Really?
usual order and start by going over the deck's big boss monster,
streamed if
so
anyone
we'll
else
have
did it, really?
context for the rest of the cards we'll be going over. Scareclaw Trikeheart is a Link 3 Dark Beast Warrior monster with 3000 attack, requiring 3 effect monsters as material,
what I
and
mean?
must be linked summoned.
Check
While
the
on the field,
lists?
all face-up monsters on
What
the
are you
field are
talking
changed to
about?
defense.
What do you mean, the lists? Like, the playlist? Because they weren't there. I looked. Let me check one more time. I'll scrub through that playlist one more time. But, like, you just made the list? What? I'm so confused. It's labeled under visas. Okay. Oh!
Hello everyone, Golden Nova here. Last month, we covered a lot of new cards coming out of...
Okay, again, I'm in the playlist, but this video is mostly just explaining the cards.
Hello everyone, Golden Nova here. The latest core set in the
cards.
OCG, Power of the Elements, just dropped, and that means we've got a lot of new archetypes to cover this month.
Like, it's just the way that it's, like, structured. It's not the same.
Hello everyone.
Yeah, and there's no, like, section like Albaz where it's, like, cards and then lore. I don't know if the whole video is, like, just mostly cards. But yeah, it's not the same idea. No New Scareclaw was lore until Tier came out. Yeah. And that's fine, but, like, I would have to, if we want to do Scareclaw, I'd have to figure out a different way to do this. Look, the algorithm hates independent lore stuff. Does it really? What? The lore is the best part. I am here just for the lore. I don't give a fuck about cards. Tell me the lore. Kashtira. That's where we're at. We went there. It's right here.
With all their cards out of the way, normally we'd move on to tech picks, but for this theme, I'd like to take a little extra time to talk about the lore and what's going on here. First, A bit of an addendum. Last time, when talking about Tiara Laments, I was under the assumption that Kaleido Heart was under the control of one of the Tiara Laments, probably a member of the ruling elite. This somber figure behind Kaleido Heart in their art was my primary reasoning, with the art for Crime possibly showing a stricter form of control. However, I think it's pretty clear now that I was incorrect, as that's not just any old Tiara Lament, that's Chotakaris. And it looks like they're stabbing Kaleido in the back while Vsauce is drawing aggro. I believe this leads us to the art in Tiara Lament's Grief, where Kaleido is fading away, and the cosmic wisps of their power are being given to both Vsauce and Chotakaris, which in turn fuels their evolution into Lulakaris. In the art for Tiara Lament's Heartbeats, we can see Vsauce siphoning
Honestly, I think it might be a better idea to just do a separate stream of he called him Vsauce. I know, it's so funny. I think it might be the move to make it a separate stream, so I have time to like scrub through everything and like make everything make sense. I think that's the move. Vsauce and Michael, shut up. Yeah, I think that would be the move. We can definitely do another lore stream soon, because lore is very fun. But yeah, I think it'd be better if we like shelved it and then do another lore stream. But it's okay. I can message Nova, it's alright. Either Draco Slayer or World Chalice. We cards that care about lore, so true, bestie. Draco Slayer? Let me see. Draco Slayer sorter. Let's. Yeah, I'll pull up Draco Slayer. Oh, that's my. Whoops. This. Let me grab Draco Slayer. Videos. Albaz. Cards. Where's the Labyrinth explained? Labyrinth, my beloved. Wait, wasn't I in a Golden Nova video? I was in one of those, right? I think we talked about Labyrinth. It wasn't that Labyrinth video itself, but I was in one. I guess everyone is D. Is it long? Draco. Yo, Draco Slayer. Here we go. Okay. There we go.
You. After all this time, I finally found you.
Ah, you must be that annoying Draco Slayer that's been meddling in my business. Come to fulfill your name's sake, I take it.
Gladly. But first, I must know. Why are you doing this?
You really want to know the truth?
I wouldn't settle for anything less.
Honestly, I was hoping you could tell me.
What?
One day I woke up and I couldn't remember a thing about myself. But I had this power, and I figured if I could just spread my will across the entire world, surely someone out there would find me and tell me what's going on.
And that's your only reason?
Well, that, and I thought it would be fun to see all the worthless scum out there squirm under my boot.
You monster.
Wait.
Flattery will get you
Aren't these pendulums?
Now,
right?
Are you
Am I crazy?
Sure you don't have anything?
At least one is a pendulum monster.
Or will I have to squeeze it out of you?
Oh, what the fuck?
Why do you have my face?
You know what? I just had the most pleasant urge to smash in that pretty little helmet of yours.
These are pendulums. Let's go! Penbistic!
Hello everyone, Golden Nova here, and welcome to Shuffling Through History, a series where a critical eye is applied to names, effects, card art, and other sources as we try to piece together the stories of the most iconic cards in the game's history. After going over morphages in the last video, having reviewed all the card art in detail in the process, it reignited the part of my brain that's been trying to puzzle out how everything is supposed to shake out in the scenario for the past half-decade. But why this story in particular? What makes Luster Pendulum and their adventures so compelling? Well, one part has to be the mystery. It's easy to infer the broader storyline. Luster goes on a journey to assemble the powers and skills necessary to defeat Vector, they have a climactic final battle, then Luster goes around to other archetypes, giving them power to fight off a new big threat before they come together for another climactic final battle. But to get the hows and the whys, you have to start tunneling into the specifics, and personally, I found it very rewarding. Also, 8 core sets translates to 2 years of storytelling, and over that time a number of powerful archetypes sprang forth. Magispector, Metal Foe, Zodiac, True Draco, even Draco Slayer by way of Draco Pals. And if you play an archetype for long enough to get competitively good with it, you're likely to find yourself invested in what happens to them in the lore. And that by no means excludes anything that doesn't make that competitive cut. Dino Mist beat out Lightsworns in the Create a Card poll for crying out loud, so if that doesn't prove they're a fan favorite, I don't know what does. So, to get to the bottom of this, I'm going to attempt to construct a timeline, from the Clash of Rebellions Ignites to the infamous True Dracos of Maximum Crisis, and I invite you to follow along as I lay out the evidence I have and explain my deductions. It's time to sort out the Draco Slayer saga.
Oh, no,
but
I hate
before we
this.
continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. That way you can
this
stay
is
up
my
to date on
personal
new releases.
account, but hell yeah, I'll subscribe again and hit that sexy like button.
And my brain makes
there
the
we
happy
go.
juice when the number go up. Also, please consider ringing the bell, as it's a good way to stay on
Ring
top
the
of
bell?
new releases,
Don't mind if I
especially
do.
ones like this that aren't my usual fare, as well as letting you know when I go live for my Friday streams. We also have a Discord where you can hang out with the rest of the community as we try to figure out why Konami turned a Sylvan monster that isn't a Sylvan, and you can also follow me on Twitter if you want to stay up to date on channel
follow
updates
the
and
boy
my
on
bad
Twitter!
takes. Thank you for your patience, and now, back to the video. Let's start with Ignites. At this point, there's no real expectation of any kind of storyline going on right now.
What can I
In fact,
say?
the only
You
connection
love to
between
support
Luster
the
Pendulum
besties.
and the Ignites is aesthetics. The field spell, Ignition Phoenix, keep that name in mind for later, has 4 of the Blazing Brawlers granting their power to Luster Pendulum, who transforms into Ignister Prominence.
Y'all better subscribe to the channel.
Ignites,
It's
you can catch
in
some
the pinned
similarities,
comment.
especially the gears that spit fire. Disappointingly,
What?
despite an almost exclusively normal monster archetype, we get no information from them about the world at large. It's much more concerned with portraying the Ignites as a bunch of buffoons.
What?
Margrave, for instance, reads thusly. A high-ranking Ignite warrior. When he does enter the fray, his sweeping attacks are feared, not just by the enemy, but also his own troops. Gallant says, a leader of the most dashing Ignite commando unit. His greatest challenge is keeping the hot tempers of his men under control. And the card art doesn't do them any favors either. Ignite's Unite and Bad Aim show 2 sides of Cavalier attacking their own team.
Oh my
so
god,
suffice
no!
it to say, the firefighters won't be helping us out much in the lore department, but keep an eye on Ignister. We'll get back to them later. Next
What?
we have Dimension of Chaos, and now we have some proper lore to work with. Vector Pendulum, the Drake Overlord, has clear parallels to Luster Pendulum via their name, attack points, and typing.
I didn't know
Their
they
flavor
would
text
like
reads
that!
thusly.
What the fuck?
This Overlord overran an entire world with his army of Draco Fiends, using Dragon Alchemy to convert all life into his terrible minions. The source of this power is unidentified, and probably extra-dimensional. We don't currently have any context for what this means, but it'll definitely be helpful to refer back to
so
later,
cute!
especially the
What
part
the
about it
fuck?
probably
That's so
being
baby!
extra-dimensional. Their pendulum ability to blank out all of your opponent's pendulum spells, however, does allude to them being the antithesis of all the story archetypes revealed thus far and into the future. And since they're dark and Luster is light, it's safe to say they're in opposition.
Yeah.
Sadly, Magispector, the associated lore archetype for this set, doesn't give you much information either. They help provide Luster with the power to become Magister Paladin, and a trap card comes much later, Magister Gust, showing Kieran blasting away a Morphage Sloth, which is the only instance of any of the lore archetypes in this cycle coming into conflict with the main antagonist of the story. Dino Mist from Breakers
They
and Shadow
all look
don't do much
so
either.
goofy.
We see them power up Luster
Oh my
Pendulum with
God.
a cool mech suit, but the biggest reveal is Master Pendulum, which is the form Luster will take for the remainder of the story. Their flavor text reads,
They look so
Luster
silly.
Pendulum, the Draco Slayer, continues his journey to uncover the secrets of dragon alchemy, believing it is the key to dispelling his curse and restoring his memory. His power continues to grow, perhaps the same power used by the Draco Fiends? So right here we see two familiar terms, Dragon Alchemy and Draco Fiends.
Okay.
We still have no idea what either of them are or what they're doing, but we know for certain that Luster is hunting down the same answers as we are because they have amnesia. There's also the implication that they're using the same power as their enemy, but once again, we have no context on how Draco Fiends wage war, so we can't draw any meaningful conclusions from it. I do want to touch on dynamic power load for a bit, because it focuses on a part of Luster's design that's going to be very important very soon. On all of their armor, you can see a little dragon insignia, and it's in a different position and color every time. But Power Load shows us a very close-up image of one of these transformations, and while we can see the Dino Mist armor being attached, the dragon insignia is separated, and changing from silver to blue. So instead of this being a part of every new armor, it's a persistent attachment that detaches, changes, and then moves on to the next one. So Shining Victories comes out and we get a ton of info. They probably could have done a better job of spreading that out over the course of the set, but that's neither here nor there. Let's start with the new form of the Drake Overlord, Electro Pendulum. This monster gives absolutely zero hoots about pendulums. As a spell, they negate all pendulum monster effects your opponent controls, and if it battles a pendulum monster, it blows itself and that pendulum monster up. They also have the same kind of dragon pendant that Luster does, and that's not the only thing they have in common. Looking at Amorphous Persona, we can see the two have the same face, hair, and wings, though of different colors. Quite the curious development. We'll circle back around to them in a bit and focus on Amorphages, because I believe they'll help to clear things up. I think it's pretty fair to say that these are the Draco Fiends spoken of in Vector and Master's flavor text. Like, if I saw a dragon look like that, I'd feel comfortable calling it demonic.
Whoa! Wait, why the fuck is there a fly just like... Hold on. Are we looking at this? Are we looking at this? Bitch, what the fuck? Ew! 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 What the fuck? Ew!
All have that artifact attached to them, which I'll be referring to as a virus core from now on to make things easy, turning them into dragons with eyeballs all over their body. Because of this, I also feel like it's safe to say that this is the dragon alchemy, turning one creature into another, namely a creepy dragon. Oddly enough, Vector Pendulum has the same eyeball affliction as the Amorphages, but the virus cores atop their staff not embedded in them, which leads me to believe that Vector is using the virus cores to rewrite the genetic makeup of other creatures to match their own, because they are technically a dragon, then commanding them using the primary core. So knowing all that, let's start recontextualizing what we already know. Master Pendulum is trying to undo a curse on themselves that's sealing away their memory, and they believe dragon alchemy is the key to fixing it. They also believe that they're utilizing the same power as the Draco Fiends, but we can see that's not true. After all, Master Pendulum hasn't exploded out of any of their friends.
Because they got banned from Brazil,
seems like
they
they're all
moved to
giving them their energy
Ohio.
willingly. But if we're still to believe that this is all still
Yeah,
dragon
speaking a little
alchemy,
silly, just turn
then
them
we're faced
dragons.
with another
Super
parallel
fun.
between Master and Lecter
Dragon from
abilities.
Florida,
Lecter uses dragon alchemy and the virus cores to change the world around them to suit their needs, while Master uses dragon alchemy to adapt their body in response to what the world around them provides.
Draco Slayer is not dual
One
terminal.
uses
No, this
power
is
to
separate.
change
This is
others,
separate.
while another changes with
I'll
the
have to fix
power of
the
others.
title and thumbnail
With
after
all that
this.
in mind, let's
But
go
yeah,
back
this
to the
is separate.
timeline. Draco Face
We
Off
ended up
shows Master
finishing
and
all of Dual
Lecter
Terminal.
squaring off.
That
We
Golden
don't
Nova
see
had,
any
so
of
we're
the
like, well,
battle, but Amorphous Persona shows that at least Lechery
I guess
and
we just
Wrath
wait.
were present. Those two have been defeated, and Master is looking pretty bad, their helmet having been shattered in the fight. Lecter doesn't look nearly as injured, but I think it's safe to assume that they fought each other to a standstill because their staff starts going out of control. The scepter begins drawing energy from at least 5 Amorphages in the area, and the toll on them can be seen in Amorphage lysis. Their unstable forms beginning to liquefy as their life forces are drawn out of them. Now, interestingly, this is not the first time we've seen this kind of trope in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Storyline. In fact, it's oddly similar to the post-Duelist Alliance Dual Terminal story, where the power of a particular theme is split across multiple colors, then recombined to form a fully powered entity, namely Cleese, Infernoids, Zephyra, and to an extent Gemini all fall into this category.
Oh my
also,
God,
the
it
corrupt
is
living beings
linked!
and turn them into members of your army thing has been done twice in that same storyline, with evil swarms
Never
and
mind, I
Shadals.
lied!
And what was it again about how the origins of Lecter's power was unidentified
I lied!
and probably extra-dimensional? Lecter's virus core absorbs the power of the others, and like
apparently
any
I
desperate
lied.
villain looking for a
Whoops, I'm
last-minute power
sorry.
boost, attaches the core to themselves and begins merging with what remains of Wrath, becoming a Morphactor Pain, the Imagination Drake Overlord. Now, the wiki says that the other half is Goliath, but in this instance I have to divert from its infinite wisdom. I'd like to point out that in Amorphous Persona we can see Wrath but not Goliath, Morphactor Pain is part Silver Dragon, not purple, and the size increase can be attributed to the virus core having absorbed an immense amount of energy and then growing larger as a side effect of that.
I'm tall
Their
as
name
fuck.
is also a big point of
Otaku,
interest.
I'm like
What in the heck is an
5'10".
Imagination Drake Overlord?
Not even including my
This is
horns.
one
I'm
of those
just
times where
naturally
a
that
word
tall.
being used sparingly
Why does
might give
everyone
us a
think I'm
hint.
tiny?
See, the only other card with Imagination in its name is Void Imagination, the continuous spell used by Infernoids to summon out their approximation of the source of destruction, Tierra. And if that wasn't enough of a connection, their Japanese name translates to Amorphactor Psycho, the Void Drake Overlord.
Oh.
I believe that this is enough of a connection to confirm that the same power that brought Shadals, Clees, and Infernoids head-to-head with the Zephyr tribes has found its way into this story, and Lecter Pendulum is on the brink of obtaining a power strong enough to seal away the source of destruction. This leads us to Forge of the True
Mitsugaki
Dracos, the
energy,
final event
oh
of the
my
Draco
God.
Slayer arc. Master Pendulum is on the ropes, Amorphactor has a substantial attack advantage, and all Master can do is ward off attacks from the melting monstrosity. But thankfully, all they have to do is stall for time, because the paradigm is about to shift once
Yeah,
again.
I'm turbo
Remember how I
tall,
said
bro.
the little insignias on Luster's armor is actually its own little creature? Well, now's the time for it to come into play. In Amorphous Persona, we can see the insignias of both Master and Vector begin to act on their own in response to the virus core going berserk. And in Forge, we can see the two of them forming an Ouroboros with each other, away from the battle between the ones that had brought them
That's
there.
so cool!
And this results in the creation, or perhaps recreation, of Master Pendulum, the true Draco Slayer, the twin dragon insignias coming together onto their armor. They possess a combination of both their hairs, 2 sets of wings, and while the armor is very much aligned to Master Pendulum, there are a number of divots in the armor with green gems in them that look very similar to the eyes around Lecter Pendulum. Now, this is the last we'll see of anything until Metal Foes show up in the next cycle, so there's a lot that needs explaining. First, what happened to Master and Lecter? Well, there's an argument to be made that Masterpiece is the combination of Master Pendulum and Amorphactor Pain, and I think it's half right. Because Master Pendulum's dragon insignia changed in response to the energies provided by Ignites, Magispectors, and Dinomists, I believe that means it's a manifestation of their spirit, which is why Master and Lecter's insignia were drawn to each other the first chance they got, because they're from the same original spirit. This, in turn, would absorb the spirits of both Master and Lecter, but leave the body.
You know what I hate?
Because of the name,
that it gives
I
me
think it's safe to
Naruto
say
energy,
that
because I'm
while
pretty
they're
sure
a
that was
mix
a
of the
plot
two,
line in
Master
Naruto,
Pendulum
that
and
they
Draco Slayer
shared like a
contributes
soul,
most of the
they're two different
personality
people, but
of
they were like a
Master
soul
Peace, the
split in
true Draco
half.
Slayer.
Or like
Okay,
a
so
soul
if
of
their spirits are
brothers.
gone,
I
what
think
about the
that was a
bodies?
plot line in Naruto.
I've got a sneaking suspicion that the leftover body
I hate
of
that I
Amorphactor
linked this to
Pain
Naruto.
becomes
I hate
Goliath.
that was even a thought in my
They're the
brain.
odd one out in a lot of ways. If the melting form stabilizes after battle and their scales match the color of the virus core in them, which we know happens to Amorphages, then the Wrath body would end up looking like Goliath. They even have similar snout structures. As for Master Pendulum, well, the card isn't called Forge of the True Draco singular, it's Forge of the True Draco
Master and Ledger literally
plural.
two copies of the same hole.
Thus,
I
Master
believe that's
Pendulum's
what
new form
is
does
like-
have a role to play in the future, but we'll discuss that when we bring up True Dracos later in the video.
Naruto's not scared
So
of
how
spirit.
did this
That's
all
what
get
it
started
was.
in the
They
first
had
place?
something about
I've mapped
spirits
out
in
why
them.
I think the power wielded by Lecter Pendulum is the 10 pieces of the seal used to suppress Tierra by Sophia, but how did it get to this reality? Well, the battle between Tierra and Zephyrath, as depicted in Master
Might be
Guide
hated.
5,
Why do you hate True
doesn't explain how the
Dracos?
battle ends. Quote, "The scale of their battle shook the entire planet and lasted for 1,000 days and 1,000 nights. At the dawn of the 1,000th day, the forms of Tierra and Zephyrath were nowhere to be seen." Now, Vector Pendulum was using a power that was probably extra-dimensional.
Oh,
I
wait,
wouldn't
this
be
is
surprised
dual
that the
turbo.
battle
Oh,
between
shit.
Tierra and Zephyrath was so cataclysmic
Okay.
that they opened a tear in the fabric of reality, and those powers have been going from place to place across the multiverse until it arrived in this dimension.
Once it did, well, we all know how much Masterpiece loves going around handing out boons. They likely happened upon someone or something wielding the power of the 10-part seal, maybe even stumbling upon the end of the battle between the two titans, but they were dealt a fatal blow as the battle concluded.
Damn, okay,
However,
I was
as
not
part of the
prepared for this to be
effective
linked to
Masterpiece,
Duel
they were
Terminal,
split into two
but
instead of being
alright.
outright destroyed. One dragon of light and one of dark, each having been implanted with one piece of the seal.
Wait, Street
each.
Draco the one with
Luster
no
Pendulum,
extra
wielding
deck?
the white
Is that what
core,
that was?
began looking for answers to cure their amnesia. Note that there's nothing physical showing that Luster Pendulum has the white core, but it's the only one left unaccounted for by the time of Amorphous Persona, and that's when the virus cores start going out of control. Vector Pendulum, wielding the purple core, was similarly struck with amnesia, but because of their evil nature, was more focused on procuring the remaining cores and taking over the world. That wraps up all the information and educated guesses about the Draco Slayer arc.
I see.
Now it's time for the true Draco arc, and there's already a bit of an issue. Like I said, the story is pretty simple. Masterpiece gives the different archetypes of this year the power to fight back against the true kings.
This is before Duel Terminal. This is like
there's
2
no
years
Ignites.
ago, and
Or
the Duel Terminal was a
Magispectre,
year
or
ago.
Dynamist for that matter. They're all gone. But there are new archetypes that share similar traits. Metal Foe are rather similar to Ignites insofar as they're both fire attribute normal pendulum themes that care about destroying their own cards and looking metallic. Crystron's and
Golden didn't do
Dynamists
Duel
are
Terminal
both
Part
water
2.
machines,
Also, Golden
and,
spoiled it anyway.
well, the Zodiac one isn't very strong, but they are a bunch of animal-themed humanoids, and Magispectors are a bunch of little animals. It's tenuous, so I'm not entirely convinced of it myself, but I wanted to put it out there just in case. This leads me to believe that we're in the far-flung future, because I think the similarities between the first two pairs I mentioned would be too much of a coincidence if this was an alternate dimension.
Why is
we
the
do get
all
to see
like these
more of
like
the tribes battling
at one
the true
point
kings this time around, cementing that they are
decks
more
are
of a
like
threat to the
linked
world
together.
at large. But
Except we're
despite that,
ignoring
there aren't very
Duel
many
Terminal.
lore drops.
Apparently most of that's just
Across
shitty.
several
But
sets,
like
a true king
here,
will show up. The theme
how
of
are
that
all
set
these
would
good
fight
cards
it,
always just
and
linked together?
repeat 2
How
more
does this
times.
keep happening?
It's not until the final set that things start coming together. Wow, what a shocker. It looks like the destruction that the true kings have caused has even broken the fabric of space and time.
What?
And out comes the true king of all calamities.
There he is!
In response, the fourth true king, Mariamne, provides some backup for the heroes, which is pretty odd, but what's also weird is how familiar they look. Ignis Heat, Majesty Maiden, and Dynamite Knight all bear striking resemblances to the forms Luster took during their journey to fight Vector
dragon. I
Pendulum.
hate that
These three are
fucker.
specifically included in the art from
I
True
hate
Draco
him.
Heritage, with Masterpiece hovering over them, solidifying their
Leo was
connection.
so sad when he
Remember how
got banned, and I was
Luster's
like,
insignia would
good, I'm
change color
glad.
as they
Fuck
gained new
him. He
forms
can
from the
suck
tribes they
my
visited,
nuts.
But for some reason, they never used them later in the story, especially against the final boss.
He can truly
I'm
chupame
attributing
los
this to the
huevos,
energy
bro.
splitting off and forming their own insignias, waiting for the right
Is that
time to
Leah's
grow into their own
uncle?
being.
No, that's Leah's boyfriend.
This is why the initial three are in True Draco Heritage, but Draeth III is in Disciples of the True Draco Phoenix, because
Free
Luster was
VFD,
never able
never.
to
That
encounter an
shit
Earth-themed
sucks.
tribe. In fact,
That
if
shit
you check
was
Draeth's
awful.
shield, you'll
Do you
see
know
one
how
of
much
those
it
dragon
sucked
insignias,
playing
likely
with
the one
Leah?
that never grew up
I
to
was
be their
playing
own True Draco.
Ojamas,
But
and
how
my
did they
girl
go from
brought
being
out
tiny pieces of dragon
VFD?
jewelry to being full-grown
Do you know how much
wand
that
people?
sucked?
Well, as it
I was
turns out,
playing
we've already seen it.
Ojamas.
Forge
I
of
was
the
playing
True Draco.
Ojamas. And
That's
Kobe
right. The
brought
event that
out
recreated
VFD.
Masterpiece also jump-started the growth of the other True Dracos. We also see this kind of growth in other creatures associated with Luster Pendulum. For instance, Mariamne. Once Master Pendulum's spirit left their body to form Masterpiece, the remaining shell grew into the fourth True
Yeah,
King.
VFD plus
I'm basing
Shen
this
Shen.
largely
She
off of their
literally
similar
tried
face
to
design.
cuck me.
While it doesn't look like
I was
Luster
just
Pendulum,
trying to
the helmet
play.
adopted by Master Pendulum is
How is that a
strikingly
skill?
similar.
What do you
And
mean
don't
I
think it's
deserved
based
it? I
off
was
of
playing
Mariamne,
Ojamas.
because the hair is the exact same, billowing in long, flowing blonde streams. But just like how the husk of Master Pendulum was enhanced, so too was Lector Pendulum's. See, the thing about the original OCG version of these cards is that they don't make a distinction between True Kings and True Dracos. That's mostly a TCG localization decision, which is why any effect involving one involves the other. It'd be more apt to divide them into True Dragons and True Dragon Kings. Still all part of the True Dragon umbrella, with King being used to designate the enemies, but this does imply that there's no fundamental division between the two. They're all descendants of the True Draco Slayer in one form or another, and that includes a Morphage Goliath. When affected by the power of the Forge, they begin to evolve into the true king of all calamities. They have the creepy body eyes, similar horns and scales, and that trademark streaming hair.
Now, in True King's Return, we can see Calamity coming through a break in space itself, so I think it's safe to say that before they become an issue, maybe even before they fully transform, Masterpiece sealed them into another dimension, the means of which I can't really confirm, but would likely draw on knowledge from their Electro Pendulum side, considering their use of the extra-dimensional power of the virus cores. Now might be a good time to go over some physical characteristics that I find interesting. Mariamne has, from my reckoning, 9 feathery wings, 2 on each side of their head, 3 more pairs along the body, and 1 for the tail. But each of the rest of the True Kings only have 1 pair of feathery wings, another pair of jet black wings that has a little divot at the base, similar to the kinds that the weird body eyes have, with a kind of jewel that's similar to Masterpiece's armor, and a set of wings that are unique to them. When it comes to Mariamne, I think this is because of their pure spirit. When Luster Pendulum was separated from them, all that was left was the nature of
don't think Virtual World is a part of this,
and so they continued to act on
these
that
bitches
instinct,
probably
and growing the true Dracos. Calamity was the exact opposite, but instead of having all dark wings, their body is still under the effects of the virus core mutation. So much like how Masterpiece has 2 pairs of wings, so too does Calamity and all of its children. Notably, the feathery and the dark wings
knowing
are not
Yu-Gi-Oh lore, I would
be
genuinely, I would not be shocked at all if VFD,
we see this in True Draco Heritage,
somehow found its way
Master Pendulum with the same kind of feathery wings as Mariamne, becoming Masterpiece, the true Draco Slayer.
Yeah, this is what Karibo can jump through. Karibo can do anything.
Given to them by Mariamne, but this also takes place after Draconic Diagram, so it may in fact be wings that they should have had all along, but were just unlocked. Since they don't grant
Jerry
these wings
Beesman,
to the
the final dude. Imagine
if
some like
there isn't much
Yu-Gi-Oh
left to tell
archetype worked in
we don't
Jerry
see the true
Beesman
Dracos actually fight anyone on
That'd
screen,
be so
but I believe
funny.
they're focusing on distracting the lesser True Kings. In True Draco Apocalypse, we can see the new Masterpiece and Metaltron 12, basically Crystron, Cori, and Gandrix decked out with gear from the Metal Foes and Zodiac, flying towards Calamity, mouth ablaze with flame. But that's all we got. Maximum Crisis was the end of the Pendulum era, Code of the Duelist came right after with World Legacy, and we haven't heard a thing since. Do the true Dracos manage to defeat the Phantom of Lecter Pendulum once and for all? Or is the world plunged into another age of darkness, where perhaps a group of scientists create the World Legacy machines to combat it? But that's a topic for another video. For now, these are the conclusions I've reached from studying all the available information on the Draco Slayer saga.
Okay. Damn. A part of me is like, yeah, watch part 2, but part 2 was like 40 minutes, and I'm tired. So I'm like, do I be insane and sit here for another 40 minutes? But I'm also tired. Do I be insane and watch more? Yeah, it's like 40 minutes long. Good news about part 2, half of it is Nova Channel lore. So you can just skip it. Is it really? Okay, if it's like, yeah, let's do that.
Hello everyone.
Oh, you're right. A lot of it is just like, what? Huh. It really is, okay. Then yeah, we can do that. Slay.
Golden Nova here, and I'm, well, I've been away for a while, huh? And not from the channel, we've been plugging along quite well these past few months, but I haven't really checked in much since my trip to Zombie World and my Vendread Awakening, and I figured it was about time I fixed that. Oh, and for anyone who subscribed to the channel since then, first off, thank you so much, and second, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, this is still going to be a Draco lore video, don't worry about that, but it's going to be nestled in between some Nova lore. If you want to catch up, the button on the top right will take you to a playlist that has all the videos you'll need to watch, and if you want to jump ahead to the Draco stuff, I've got chapters down below that you can use. Okay, housekeeping stuff is out of the way, what have I been up to?
Like me?
Well, not much. A quick
like
refresher,
us with
Eldritch
Tashi?
and his goons kidnapped Ogdo Abyss, which was the entity keeping the underworld rivers from flooding over and causing massive damage to the hereafter.
Okay.
Aaron, the Ogdoadic king, tasked me with sorting out Zombie World while they tried to
Wait. Oh, he has his own. Whoa! He has his own. What?
get... Darkwing Blast has been a set that's full of lore. We've had an update to the Albaz storyline, as well as enough elements for me to consider Vsauce, Michael here, as its own lore worth keeping up with. But the last thing I expected was another update to the Draco Slayer storyline.
Yeah!
That's right, the last time we had a check-in from this world was in Blazing Vortex, where we saw the apparent defeat of the true king of all calamities.
Fuck
the
that
most recent
bitch!
form of Vector
Kill
Pendulum.
him!
We still haven't gotten the versions of Zodiacs or Crystrons that got the update treatment like Metal Foes.
There's more
but
lore.
hopefully
Nova,
this shows
Nova.
that we'll be
Golden
getting them
Nova
sooner
most
rather than
certainly
later.
does.
But even though it doesn't touch on that, we
goddamn,
still have
I
a
am
lot
so
to choose
lazy
through
when it
today.
comes to lore.
But before we get into it, you might want to check out my first video on the subject
We
so you know
did.
where we're
We
at.
watched it
Once again,
all.
link in the top right. And while you're poking around, I wanted to ask if you would be so kind as to hit that like button,
There we go.
fighting the good fight against the Draco Fiends along the way.
Yeah.
All the while, Luster absorbed the power of the tribes and evolved into Master Pendulum, before squaring off against Vector
Okay.
Pendulum, later Lecter Pendulum. The two battled fiercely to the point where they fused into one being, Masterpiece the True Draco Slayer, thus ending Part 1. Part
Yes.
2 follows Masterpiece as they travel to 3 new tribes, the
What?
Metal Foes, the Crystrons, and the Zodiacs, but instead of gaining their power, they confer theirs onto those tribes, granting them the power to stand against the true kings. Enormous life forms that have been causing
baby!
catastrophes across
Wait,
the planet.
a baby?
This
What?
all came to a head when the True Dracos, led by Mariamne, clashed with the True
okay,
King of all
okay.
calamities,
Yeah,
leader
fuck
of
that
the
bitch.
True Kings.
Kill him.
Masterpiece was then given the power of the True Draco faction, making them the True Draco Slaying King, and by joining forces
Slay,
with
slay,
Metaltron
okay.
12, did battle with Vector Pendulum's latest form. And, thanks to Parametal Foes fusion, we can see that they succeeded in vanquishing the beast. That leads us
Wait.
to today, where we obtain
Wait, I think I just realized something. Wait, hold on. Hold on. I'm sorry. Is Heavy Metal Foes a person? Is Electromite a person? Electromite's a person? What? What are these things she wants? Like a robot! I didn't think that Electromite was like a person. I thought it was like a robot. I didn't think Electromite was a person. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I didn't realize it until I saw the back of someone's head in this. Actually, that might even be fucking Electromite. Oh my god. I don't really wait. Oops, oops. Here we go. On the top, what are you talking about? On the top right? Or top left? What are you talking about?
today, where we obtained 3 new Draco Slayer Pendulum monsters, as well as our own dedicated field spell. And after all the time Luster spent helping everyone else out, I think it's deserved. But that begs the question. If the big bad evil guy is defeated,
I don't know.
where does this fall on the official timeline? Does it make much sense for the designers to portray events in a part of the story where nothing is happening? And that's because this isn't happening at the end of the current Draco Slayer arc, it's happening near the end of another Part 1. And to explain, let's go back to some conclusions we reached last time. The field spells are very important in this storyline. Each one shows how the forms of Draco interact with each tribe, and they hide some very interesting clues. Looking back at Luster Pendulum's
Listen,
art,
I didn't realize Electromite was a person, okay? I don't know why I thought Electromite was like
another part of the
like
armor.
a machine.
But in the Art of Ignition Phoenix and Dynamic Power Load, we can see that little dragon come to life, shifting and moving, taking on the color of the attribute associated with the tribe involved, and is even seen on the extra deck Draco Slayer's
apparently
armor in its
Electromite has
form.
titties.
This detail is
The
so
more
important
you know.
that it basically forms the linchpin that connects parts 1 and 2, and is the basis for claiming that Lecter and Master Pendulum fuse to form Masterpiece. Because not only does Vector have their own tiny dragon spirit, we can see them twisting together in the art for Forge of the True Dracos. This also led to my theory that these tiny dragons ended up growing into the true Dracos during the times between part 1 and 2. Despite there being no Ignites, Magispectors, or Dino Mists in the setting for part 2, each one took characteristics of the extra deck Draco Slayer monster they're associated with. Ignis Heat looks like Ignister Prominence, Majesty Maiden has similarities to Magister Paladin, and Dynamite Knight looks like Dinoster Power. Driath seems to further support this claim, as the Earth Draco Slayer never came to be, and one of those tiny dragons can be seen with Driath in the color we would expect the Earth one to be. To me, this sets up a pretty coherent timeline.
They're cute till they flip
through the power of certain
floodgates.
tribes, Luster would eventually shed that power, because we certainly don't see it maintain its larger forms across adventures, and that shed mini-dragon eventually grows up to be a true Draco, using that shed form as a shell to grow into. But if that form is their adult version, then the Draco Slayers we see now are some kind of in-between stage. So when we see them in Dragonic Pendulum, they're achieving the form we know them as now, the true Dracos. But what if it's the other way around? What if they're gaining the power of Pendulum? I mean, the card is called Dragonic Pendulum, right? Well, that does seem to track, but we actually have a card that helps to arrange the order of events to figure out what's going on, and that is Heritage of the Light. That's right, your eyes might have glazed over this unassuming common from Burst of Destiny, considering all the value in the rest of the set, but this singular image holds the key to solidifying a lot more of the timeline. Behind the particle effects, we can see our favorite Draco Slayer with 3 colored orbs, the same orbs seen in Dragonic Pendulum. Of note, we can see that these orbs are moving away from Draco Slayer because of the light arc coming off the red orb. This might also signify the moment Luster Pendulum becomes Master Pendulum. We know it's not the first masterpiece because there's only one pair of wings, and it looks like this version has Master Pendulum's sword, being wide with a curved blade instead of Luster's less ornate longsword, but they lack Master Pendulum's red horns. So, once Luster has accumulated enough power, they evolve to become Master Pendulum, and no longer needing the power granted by the 3 tribes, returns that power, perhaps even having been altered or empowered by their exposure to Draco Slayer, and help to catalyze the final evolution of these new Draco Slayers into their true Draco forms. I also enjoy the parallel we have here. Heritage of the Light, True Draco, Heritage, fun stuff. But we've been beating around the bush for a bit about a key detail that might sour things up a bit. See, if the true Dracos are all the evolved versions of these Draco Slayers, then how come only one of them seems to have any kind of humanoid feature, while all 3 of the true Dracos
what the
look
fuck?
like
She
people?
becomes a horse girl for real?
We're gonna have to take a look at the background of these cards. It's difficult to spot, but eagle-eyed viewers will notice that this is the same symbol that shows up in the Draco Slayers and Drake Overlord card art, as well as the Amorphages. It's a symbol that denotes the presence of dragon alchemy, the corruptive art that Vector Pendulum used to turn woodland creatures into heinous, body horror-inspired dragons. Now, we know that Luster and Vector are 2 sides of the same coin, so we've posited that it wasn't just Vector that was using dragon alchemy, but Luster as well. But our Warrior of Light was using it to enhance themselves, as opposed to Vector, who was using it to warp others. And while I still think that's the case, it seems to have gone one step further. Remember how earlier I pointed out that the Ignite and Dino Mist field spells depict Luster's transformation into their extra deck forms? Well, those are the only 2.
I know, becoming a horse girl.
Magispector one, Majesty's Pegasus, shows Magispector Unicorn Kieran receiving the same treatment as Luster received in the Art of Ignition Phoenix, with all the members of a tribe giving their power to a single being. And the incongruities
I feel like every
keep
morning
going,
she wakes
too,
up and says
because
good morning,
Magister
every
Paladin
pony.
is the only Draco Slayer extra deck monster that isn't an enhanced version of Luster Pendulum, but is instead teaming up with Kieran, who is sporting a
How
sweet
much?
new
Like,
pair
how
of
often
wings,
do you
by
think
the
she
way.
says pony
However,
in a sentence?
Luster still
Now I'm
has a little
curious.
dragon pendant that matches the color of the wind attribute. Kieran is also
Noah,
the
shush
only
him up,
member
Brody,
of
I'm
any of the tribes
sorry.
in this series to be shown fighting the Amorphages, as shown in Magispector Gust. So what does all that mean? Well, here's what I think. Luster Pendulum wasn't able to help defend the Magispectors for
I
some
regret
time,
my
so Kieran
comment.
had
It's
to
all
step
your
up and
fault,
was given the
Cogs.
power of
It
the
is
tribe
all your
that Luster
fault.
would usually receive. But the tiny elemental dragons still needed a host. With the Ignites and Dino-Mists, that was a little less weird, as both themes are basically machine constructs. The Ignites are warriors, sure, but we haven't seen a single organic thing from them.
This
So
lady
if the little
flip-flopping
dragons
around.
needed a host to grow into, the shell left behind by Luster would be a good
Not
place
the little
to grow
click
from.
clacks on
But
the car,
Kieran-
the street.
Well, that's definitely a living, breathing, organic creature, and
Leaf
that's
Stream,
why
thank you for
Majesty
hanging out,
Pegasus looks
bestie.
so
Thank
different
you.
from the other two. And it confirms that this is another form of dragon alchemy. True, Kieran isn't sprouting dragon limbs out of their back or something, but they
Yeah.
are sprouting a whole human body out of where their head would be. It's still pretty gruesome if you think about it, but it's certainly not framed
There you
that
go.
way.
No worries,
And that
bestie. Have
might
good
be
Nini.
because
Love
this was
you.
a willing transformation. I doubt Vector's victims wanted to be hit by the mutagen, but if the dragons left behind by Luster stayed with the tribes they visited as another member to help fight against the Amorphage threat, Kieran could have willingly accepted that spirit and transformed into Majesty Pegasus. But this leads to another question. Why in the world do they lose the power of Pendulum as time goes on?
So
Well,
true,
I don't
bestie.
have an exact answer for this, but it seems to be in line with how the Draco Slayers grow. No form of the Draco Slayer or Drake Overlord maintain their pendulum power in part 2 of the lore, which either implies that it's
I
just
just
something
can't
they grow
believe
out
she
of,
get a
or
horse
that
girl.
the pendulum power
That's a-
only
that's a-
exists so long as the two Dracos remain
I just-
separate, though that last one doesn't hold
Oh
as
my
much
God.
water since the
They really
Metal
did
Crows
her
are
like
very
that.
much pendulums. In fact, the mechanics continue to support the idea that they grow out of it. In their Draco Slayer forms, they still count as members of their individual archetypes
make her
and
full
maintain
horse
that archetype's
or not
typing.
at all.
However, when we see them as true Dracos, they've all turned into worms and are no longer part of those archetypes. And that just about wraps up what we learned from this set's lore. We found out how the true
okay.
Dracos came to be, and that Luster was utilizing some form of dragon alchemy to not only enhance itself, but also create other Draco Slayers. It's a pretty nifty bit of backstory that helps clear some things up, and adds to how cool and base Draco Slayers are. Which means, by contrast, the Drake Overlords are stinky smelly doofuses who couldn't duel their way out of a paper bag. I mean, if they had anything to expound upon, they would have made like Drake Overlord support, or a Morphage support.
Well, maybe if people didn't complain so much about floodgates, then the designers wouldn't be such cowards about making more cards that reflect the brilliance.
I think it's actually just the end of the lore. Cool. Well, I believe that is just everything I have, besties. Very slay. Yeah, I guess that's everything. It's cringe and Dude, this really ends like I took people's head last time. What? Oh, before I go. Josh, you motherfucker. Josh, you bitch. Why? Welcome to membership, bestie. Josh, you bitch. Why? Explain yourself. Welcome to membership, bestie. Josh, explain yourself. Why? Why? Welcome to membership, bestie. I need a reason. Why? Welcome to membership, bestie. No reason, just having fun, you bitch. Welcome to membership, bestie. You son of a bitch. Welcome to membership, bestie. I can't believe you done this. Yes, before I go, welcome to membership, bestie. The schedule. Yeah, so true. We're never prepared for Josh, but Josh just says, welcome to membership, bestie. And then I say, What the fuck? You bitch.
Welcome to membership, bestie.
Yes. Before I go, schedule. Ba-bam. Ba-bam.
Welcome to membership, bestie.
So, as per usual, 2 Master Duel streams. On
Welcome
Wednesday,
to membership,
we're going back to
bestie.
Pokemon Scarlet, the return of Jafe. Ba-bow. The return of Jafe.
Welcome to membership, bestie.
Thursday stream might be moved. I will keep you guys posted. However, Friday.
Welcome to membership, bestie.
Friday will be a very exciting stream because I am partnering with
Welcome to membership,
50 card
bestie.
Shop. If you know Vanguard, they supply lots of boxes for Vanguard. I'll be
Welcome
partnering
to
with
membership,
50 card Shop
bestie.
and doing a box opening stream for Vanguard and giving away some special cards. And I'm sorry, like I was thinking about
Welcome to
waiting
membership,
to show you guys
bestie.
these cards, but they are too cool. So I need you all to see them.
Welcome to membership, bestie.
I need you all to see these cards we're giving out because holy shit, they are so cool.
Welcome to membership, bestie.
They're too cool. I have to show them. I have to. It is not a want, but a
Welcome
need.
to membership, bestie.
And if you know anything about Vanguard, you'll see these cards and be like, holy shit. And I'm like, I know.
Welcome
I
to
can't.
membership, bestie.
Why the fuck won't it open? Here's what I'll do. I'll just take a screenshot. It'll look slightly crunchy, but it works for now. Slay. Oh, ba-bam! Ba-bam! So, if you know anything Vanguard, you will know that the card in the middle is, I believe, one of, if not the most expensive card in Standard right now. So, we'll be giving away some real cool stuff. Yeah. So if you know Vanguard, you'll know that these cards are like bonkers. But yeah, more information on how to enter the giveaway and whatnot will be announced soon. But yeah, that is what I have for you guys today. Yeah. I was a more expensive card. Let me look up how much is Skyfall Arms. This might not even be the most expensive card, but at the very least, it is the most expensive DSR that exists. Let me see. Actually, no, the most expensive card I think exists is like, there was this one of, for someone who won like Worlds, that literally says like, counterblast something, gives 6 damage. That card can't legally be used, but like, I think that's technically the most expensive card out there. But, let me look up Skyfall Arms. The DSR Skyfall Arms is the most expensive DSR, so... Skyfall Arms, DSR. How much are you on TCG Player? This is, there's only one for sale on TCG Player, and it's $330. Not LSR? LSR, the Kyrie is an LSR. We'll go back up, yeah. Kyrie, the one on the, all the way on the right, she's the LSR. LSR is only for lyrical cards. DSR is for other ones. How much is the Kyrie LSR? Vanguard, Kyrie, LSR. That's the grade 4, not what I'm looking for. This is the grade 3. Okay, this is like $75 to $80 is the Kyrie. But yeah, these are not cheap This is not cheap cardboard. It is not cheap cardboard. But yeah, I'm very sneepies, so I go Nini's now. But I love and chew. And I'll see you guys on Monday. Yeah, I'll see you guys Monday. Okay, bye bye.